know, I'll go into full hibernation mode if I don't do something productive. So there's a couple places in town. There's a small little theater around the corner. I'm a film enthusiast, so I'm looking at maybe getting a job at the theater, something to do. They also put on concerts and stuff like that. So uh, so I'll give you just a quick background on just so you know where I'm at.
Okay.
Um, I started studying conspiracy culture like 30 years ago, back in around 92. Um, I I went to an Amway convention in Atlanta, and my dad, he was into Amway, and at that convention I saw GHW Senior, George Bush Senior, speak at that convention, and I came back and I was talking to my sister's boyfriend's cousin, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I saw George Bush speak and blah blah blah." And he's like, "Oh, you know about the New World Order?" And I was like, "What?" Of course, I'm like 15, going on 16 at the time, right? So I was like, "No, what's that?" And that was sort of the beginning of it all. Also, JFK came out on VHS that year too, so it's all sort of coming to to a point. And of course, like 9 years later, 9/11 happened, and then that was full on red pill moment for me. And from that moment on, I just went right down into the rabbit hole. Now I spent a lot of time on specific topics. Like one was, bloodline, ancient bloodlines. I try not to jump from topic to topic. I find it's very jarring to be in a rabbit hole for some people because it's easy to get lost.
I agree. Like that's, and I feel like it, if you don't thoroughly investigate it and get all the ins and outs of it, like very detailed, and be able to explain it without pulling something up, without like having to refer to something, you can like talk somebody into it almost without using anything but your own mind. And if
Yeah,
you can't do that, then they're not going to go click on it. They're not going to look at it. They're not going to go research it.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree wholeheartedly. Yeah, I spent 4 years studying, about 4.5 years studying trauma-based mind control and mind control. And then shortly after that, I got into flat Earth, and I spent about a little over 2 years on flat Earth. But I know you have some different takes on it, and
Well, I've been like, that's what my thing. I found one truth that I knew was undeniable. And then from that one on, I just held on to that one truth and I kept diving into that subject. And I was like,
yeah,
I know there's more here because I know there's a truth here that I have.
right,
And it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. The experiments, the observations, it just became a more detailed explanation. I'm glad I didn't stop beating this one subject because if I
yeah,
didn't do that, then I wouldn't have all the observations I do today. Because like,
yeah, yeah. I agree, and I think that um, uh, the, the part about, I mean, I find it fascinating. I find this stuff fascinating, which is why I do it.
mm,
Truth. I mean, I always tell people what I believe and what I can prove are often two separate things.
correct.
Um, I'm just a Christian and I believe in Christ and God and that, but I can't prove any of it, and I
Right.
still challenge those beliefs all the time.
I wanted
All
to
the
get
time.
back to a design structure though. That was my main thing. If I could get you to say, okay, this place is created, then boom, we're in a first. We got a foot in the door.
Mhm.
We can get away from atheism and we can go towards this direction at least. And
Yeah.
that's all I really want with people is to realize that they are created. That's like,
Well, I find it fascinating, which is why I dive into this stuff. But what I find fascinating beyond that, when it comes to flat Earth, is how a lot of people come to it because they are trying to debunk it. I'm gonna look at the evidence, and I'm gonna prove these guys wrong. And then after a few months, they're like, oh shit, oh
yeah.
shit, So,
It was my
so I find,
birthday like 6 years ago, August 3rd. I was completely content with my life at this moment, and I had stopped looking at conspiracies. Some tragic incidents happened in my life, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna click on this flat Earth link, and then literally I was minutes into it. I was like, oh no. I was like, instantly I knew something was wrong. It didn't take me months of investigating, debunking it. My brain immediately was like, "Oh crap, I'm an idiot." Like that's immediately how I felt. Like, "Oh my god, I'm stupid." That's immediately how I felt for a while, and I didn't know how to absorb all those emotions. It was weird. It was a weird feeling at first.
Yeah, I mean, about a few years ago when I was doing that research, at that time, my business partner, who's been a friend of mine for 20 years, and we played in bands together and whatnot, so we're really, really tight. I was just talking out loud, like he would just listen, like, oh yeah, I talk about all kinds of stuff, and I was this one day we were driving into work, and I was talking about flat Earth, and he's just like, out of nowhere, and he doesn't follow this stuff. He doesn't do any of this kind of research. He's just like, oh yeah, the sun's right there. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, oh yeah, I've always believed that. So it's not however millions of miles they say it is away. It's right there. I've always felt like that. And I said, what do you mean you've always felt like that? Like since a kid? He's like, oh yeah. And then I said, well, have you ever said that out loud before? No. And that was it. That's just like, okay.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
when you think back about it, you have all the kids' toys with the sun right there in their little area, and then you have every time you drew a picture when you were a kid, you have the sun right here, the house right here, you're right here. It's in your little space. Like,
right.
there's so many things that point towards this one little thing your whole life, and you're like, ah.
As a subconscious thing, like yeah, like it's sort of in our
I
brain.
remember saying like, I feel like the sun's following us down the road. I remember that as a kid, like it's following us. Like, why are our shadows staying with the light? I remember like, why are the cars' shadows staying with the light? I remember looking at them as a kid. I mean, like, it's following us. Like, and but
Well,
never. You don't think anything of it though. You're just like, yeah.
well, when you're a kid, I mean, we ask the questions, but I think we rarely. Um,
The parents didn't have the answers.
well, yes, and I think that we rarely follow up in a sort of and by researching when we're kids, we're just like, oh, that's cool, or oh, that's really neat, and then we're just on to doing whatever else, riding our bikes or whatever,
I've noticed some
and
people don't have the same like almost autistic memory as everybody else. All of my thoughts came flooding back to me the minute like I had my epiphany, discovery, started watching that video. Like I remembered all these moments from school and things being taught to me in first grade, second grade. We had a helicopter come. We had a teacher talking to us about the terra firmas, and all this information was just like, oh my god. I felt like somebody had downloaded a file into my brain and was like, boom,
right.
you're supposed to see this. That's literally how I felt. Like it was like
Well, I think, and having spent as many years as I have doing this kind of stuff, I think some of the most closed-minded people I've ever met are conspiracy theorists because they they typically they can't challenge the beliefs that they I'm always open to new ideas and stuff, which is why I want to talk to you, and um, for one, and then like I think flat Earth really upsets a lot of people because it sort of pokes holes in the alien narrative, right? And this outer
oh yeah, they
space
love
stuff.
the aliens, don't they?
I know, I mean my research into the work of Stuart Swerdlow, um, his stuff and whatnot. So they're more like extra dimensional beings, whatever that
Like
is. They're
interdimensional.
yeah, um,
Like a spirit or a demon or like
yes, angelic beings. I believe.
a higher light form. That's what I think. We're light
Yeah,
beings, and I think they're just higher forms of light beings. Like UFOs, they're not physical objects. I don't think. I think they're just visual lights that we see, and somehow we're not supposed to see them, but they're not moving fast
yeah.
enough, or
I
whatever
saw.
the case may be.
Yeah, I saw your video on that, or your post
Yeah,
about that.
every time I've seen lots of UFOs sober, but every time I've taken psychedelics, I see them everywhere. And like it'd be one thing if I was like tripping and nobody else saw it, but everybody else sees it when I see it. So it's like
Right.
we all saw the same thing. You're telling me we're all like
Well,
hallucinating this illusion
and
together? Yeah.
that brings to mind the question of like, are we really being Like, are people really being suppressed to not see these things by, the
Like shooting
elite?
stars, I think they're all
Yeah.
angels, light beings, falling stars. They're all the. I believe the
Uh,
stars are like living beings. Check it out. One night, me and my wife were tripping on acid in the country in Mississippi, and we took DMT as well. We smoked like one hit of DMT. It's one crazy. All the stars like multiplied. As we were coming back down from the DMT, I looked up at a star, and there's the whole light sky was filled with stars. And one star sprinkled like this, it splashed, and then it shot a beam to another star right next to it, and then it splashed. Like, how does this make any kind of sense on
right.
any kind of model? They're
Why?
communicating, like literally
Why?
communicating. Like,
And I think people, when they take drugs, quite often think it's an internal experience. Like, it's just a drug messing with my mind, and I'm seeing this.
but my
It's
wife
not
saw it
actually
too.
happening. And that's what I think. I
Yeah.
think some people aren't. I think their brain, like, we've been programmed in such a way, and I think it's so. The programming is so advanced. I mean, again, like this, my study into mind control and
Hmm.
trauma-based mind control. I believe that people are so incredibly mind controlled that they can't. I mean, there's cognitive dissonance, and I think that's part of the problem is that they're unable to break free from what they've been taught. And I think that the public school system has just, got it right locked down. Like, they know exactly how to filter people into that way of thinking. And of course you throw all the other propaganda and all the other crap in it as well, and it makes it much more difficult
I,
to
yeah.
break from that.
I think a lot of people are almost at like a PTSD phase with
Yes,
not with
yes,
information. When it comes to information, they're
sure.
scared of because they've been lied to, and they don't want to feel like a fool. They also don't want to step out on a limb, like a flat Earth limb, and then have it
Yeah.
break underneath them. That they feel very vulnerable. I think,
Well,
and that's
I
what.
see a lot of people who say they're awake and whatnot,
Hmm.
but then they come out and like, oh, this flat Earth stuff is crazy, and you're all, just unfriend me if you think that stuff
Oh
is
yeah,
you're a
yeah.
nut job. And I'm like, well, I'm not gonna unfriend you, but I'm gonna keep when I'm talking to you, I'll keep my beliefs private. But
I
I think I did talk to a few friends about it back. Maybe it would have been 2017 to early 2019 when I was doing the study, and um, I was talking to a few friends, and I just kept throwing, more and more at them, and they're just like, "Oh, I never thought of that." And I kept asking questions, and okay, but what about this?
Yeah.
What about that? And
I
I,
get. I did the same thing. Yeah. Keep going. I'm sorry. I'm cutting up.
yeah, I know, and it's like they're, they never really thought about it until I brought it up, and um, in the end, they sort of fell back into the, wow, it's right there, it's round or whatever, and that's what I believe. And I said, well, are you going to teach your kids that that's the truth, or are you going to say, well, some people believe this and some people believe that? And they're like,
I
I
make a
don't
lot of
know.
videos with my daughter.
Oh, yeah, do you?
Yeah, I show like I have one video of us looking at the sun at like 5 p.m. I'm like, and I start the camera. And we're in the car, and I'm like, "Hey Charlotte, what looks closer, the sun or the furthest clouds you can see?" And she's like, "The sun's closer." And I'll just have her say stuff like that, and then I have her watch a video of me having the sun go through the clouds, and we're like, "Tell me what's going on in this video," and then she'll just explain it what she's seeing, and I'm like, "See, she's not blind like everybody else."
Yeah, because I think we're told not to look at the sun, and I think that's one of the biggest
Smoking
bits of
guns.
yeah, it's a big programming thing. It's like, oh, don't look at the sun. It's like,
But it's an
well,
obvious thing.
yeah,
If you
yeah,
go look, you're like, oh, that was one of the first things I immediately knew that we've been lied to. I started staring at the sun. I was like, oh, this is.
well, well, prior to that, I did have an 8-inch Newtonian reflective telescope when I had the maximum magnification lenses that you could get for it. It was a beautiful piece. I spent thousands on that setup, and I was really disappointed because when started looking at the stars and the quote unquote nebulas and stuff, it just looked so fucking fake and so not what it was supposed to be, and it was not matching up with NASA. This is going back to 2010, and I was really, really.
I was just waking up then. Nine.
I, I,
2009 was the year I woke up.
oh, okay, yeah. I mean, I was so upset. I mean, I was really. I mean, I spent thousands expecting to, check out some nebulas and this and that, and and I just,
I got the Nikon.
no, oh yeah. Well, I was using my binoculars for a while because I got a really great set of binoculars. There's a lot I could actually make out.
Yeah, the new Android has a 60 times zoom on it. Have you seen this? Like,
No.
people
Oh,
were
I heard
like,
about it, yeah.
the quality on the, there's this one TikTok video that had like 1 million views, and the woman was like, Androids are way better because the quality of the moon picture is so much better on the Android. I said it has nothing to do with the quality of the camera. The zoom is higher. If the zoom was higher on the iPhone, they would take a better picture than the Android. But the zoom is not higher, so you're getting the better quality because the quality changes of the moon based off the zoom the amount you can zoom in.
Right.
So like, people don't understand these little things. Like,
yeah, and I think like, again, we're not in a. I mean, we're starting to see now over the last few years more people ask questions,
mm-hmm.
but I just always am asking questions. I mean, my teachers were they hated me. Like, I would just be like, well, but what about this and what about that? And after a while, I'm like, but just forget it, okay?
That happened to me with the helicopter. We were out at field day, first grade. They had the Fox 5 news out there, and certain kids could jump on the helicopter. They'd ride them up, and it was floating for like 5 minutes, and then they come back down, get the kids down. Well, I'm looking up. I asked the teacher. I'm like, we just literally learned that the Earth was spinning, and I'm like, the helicopter's just hovering right there. Why is it not like going away from me or something? Like,
right.
And like they couldn't answer me. I remember it being like, I don't know, like them just being like, I don't know. Like,
yeah, I know. It's always funny when you approach these authority, like the people we consider knowledgeable, whether it's our teachers or mentors or whatnot, with these questions, and they're like, I can't answer that. It's always fascinating. I got that a lot. Again, they basically just told me to shut up after a while.
I remember us having, as kids, as a conversation, should we be able to skip across the United States if we're spinning like 1,000 miles per hour? Like, I remember having this conversation. Like,
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Just jump up in the air.
yeah. Like,
and let gravity do its thing.
Yeah.
So Preston, I want to ask. I'm just going to go over. I've got my notes here from my flat Earth stuff from a while back. And I just want to talk about the common within the flat Earth stuff. Like, I know that there's some things that you agree with and some you don't. So I just want to go over my stuff here. Like airplane pilots. It seems that airline pilots seem to know something that most people don't.
Mm-hmm.
GPS, the USD is a flat Earth map that they use.
Ground
GPS.
Positioning System.
Yes.
Well, that's a global positioning system. That's an air and sea map. It's not a grounded map like that. So it can't but it's so like everything's distorted in it. The center, the northern side shrunken down, the outside is expanded, and so like they can do math and calculate where they truly are on those things. Like there's very precise math formulas for that to work. Like they have to add in math for their locations to be accurate. That's not an accurate map.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Auguste Piccard.
Is that like
first man into the stratosphere there?
I don't really.
Did you not know about Auguste Piccard?
I don't really follow a whole lot of the accomplishments.
Piccard, what he was.
Oh, is that the guy that said the Earth is a upturned dish or like a dish, right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I don't like this. I feel like this was a deception because you can't see that far. How are you going to know the edge is upturned if you can only see like a couple hundred miles? You think you could see the edge a couple hundred miles?
Right.
That's part that bothered me. If that was his opinion, I think his opinion was flawed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Size of the sun and the moon are the same. That's just, to me, that is a sign of
observable thing. Yeah.
The vanishing point.
The eclipses prove this. Yeah.
Yes. No, I agree. I think that should be
all you need right there. A total eclipse. Like what?
Yeah, and it's like, okay, well, hello, intelligent design people. Like this is
And people, a lot of globe believers will use the argument, well, it doesn't change sizes because they believe it's smaller and more local, like other flat earthers. So they use the argument that it wouldn't change sizes. But it's a personal projection, and a lot of flat earthers aren't using this discussion of it being a holographic projection, very local to each observer. And so
so you're saying
that it does not change for you, for any observer. Like it only changes when there's atmospheric lensing.
right? It's
Yeah.
lower to the
Or
lower
there's
to
a
the ground.
glow, but the
Right.
actual circle, if you stare at it, will stay the same all till it comes to you and away from you. It stays the same.
Right.
Yeah.
Um, and you believe that? I mean, I'm of the mindset that yes, the moon is a projection.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
an
I don't think
object
they're.
with its own.
I don't think they're physical objects at all.
Yeah. The sun either.
No. Because
So
there's three different patterns. There's three different circuits. There's each tropical circuit and the equinox, right? You have the
okay, right.
yeah, and they like all the lights run on three different circuits. So
Okay.
um,
So it's just during each cycle, the projection changes to a different location.
right. So like the day
Okay.
the day equinox hits from winter solstice, the shadow on the wall literally the next day will be like a good chunk, like
Right.
the sun coming up. And then when the moon changes tracks, it's literally from here, like, and the moon's winter driven. It rises north of you in the winter, and in the summer, like it's opposite of the sun. Like the sun rises north of you during the summer, the moon does that during the winter, and it sets north of you during. So it does the exact opposite of what the sun does, which I find they don't teach you that at all. I tell people that all the time. It blows their mind. So
Yeah, that's things like that are fascinating. I'm like, it's
because that proves you're in a timepiece, kind of like that shows it's more of
Yeah.
a circuit-based reality.
It's moving.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
just sort of random and like, oh, they match up for an eclipse and then they're back in their cycles. It's like that's all.
Now, I will say that the moon gives the illusion that it has shadows on it. It's a design. Everything on it's a design. It's intelligent design. Everything is designed. That's always what I come back to is design. And like when the moon is always facing the sun, the way it's shaded, they're married in nature.
Right.
It's always going to face the sun. So when the globe believers use this argument that the moon gets its light from the sun, I always go, yes, it does. That because they're married, its position determines how it's lit up and how it does its phases. Now it's not getting its light, but it does determine its position will always be facing the sun. When the sun sets, the moon will actually, and it goes back around, it turns. As the sun goes past it, I guess down the mirror, backside of wherever Earth is, and the moon will actually turn toward and face the sun. And when it pops back up, like it does it like instantly. So,
NASA, meaning as Hebrew to deceive.
yep. I've
Nicholas
seen that
Copernic-
meme. Yeah.
Sorry, you've seen what?
I've seen that meme where NASA means to deceive in Hebrew.
Yes, Nicholas Copernicus is part of the occult,
Yep.
as were many of the rest of them.
See, that's the
were
thing. I don't
involved.
trust anything from the Vatican. Like,
Right.
I have done a lot of research on Freemasons and Jesuits. My opinion is kind of what Alex Jones says: is the Jesuits came and infiltrated our country was mostly built by Freemasons, and Freemasons used to be kind of the good guys, and now they've been infiltrated, and they're pretty much the same thing as Jesuits now. They're not.
Right.
They're one and the same. Like so.
Well, I try to tell people. I think everyone has this idea that if you're a Freemason, you're instantly evil. It's like, well, you gotta. I mean,
They used to be the
Well,
good guys.
you gotta look at history, and you gotta take a moment to see that. I know, and from some of my sources have said that there's a lot at this point. There's a lot of infighting with these secret
Well,
societies.
the Freemasons taught like the Hebrew Christianity and the The Catholics want to teach the pagan Christianity. They want to teach
Right.
Lucifer's God, and they
Yes.
like yeah. And so that's not the Israelites were like the Mormons and the Muslims. They were all teaching like the Freemason Christianity. They were all on more of that side than the pagan side. So.
Right, and it's been obviously been infiltrated with the rites and rituals that are being performed these days through Christmas and all of the most of, if not all of the holidays and celebrations. So so all so camera lenses with the fisheye effect are the reason why people I saw the curve of the Earth.
You know, the fisheye lens, the ODD TV, I don't share his video anymore because he still pushes that map. But like he had a great video on the fisheye lens versus the wide angle lens that I liked showing people. But if you share that kind of content at all, I no longer share your videos. I unfollow you. And me and I don't know how long you've been in the flat Earth movement, but Jake, the flat Earth asshole, we both got ODD into like a conversation, full-blown text, telling him all these facts, and he was still like a low believer. Nah, I'm not going to believe that. This is the map I believe. And acknowledged everything we said, and then just kept like ignoring it and be like, oh, I'm just going to keep sharing this lie. Like,
So from that map that you were talking about, and I've seen in some of your videos, you still believe in the four corners of the Earth? Is that correct?
I like square Earth.
Yeah,
Like the one, the one on our phone. You zoom out. That's what we kind of use. That's what we learned on at school. That's what's at the airports. It's just, and then there's all these little things in literature and signs that point towards it. I wouldn't say the Earth is square. Like physically, the dimensions are in a system type way,
Okay.
where it's not quite physical, where everybody's in their own little square box, and you're like in the center of your own experience. Where like you share that experience when you're with someone, but you don't share that experience once they're away from you.
Right.
And I realized this with the sun when it only takes us to be literally separated by a bubble cloud for us to be having our own experience of the light and the beams. Like that's amount of distance. So I used that metaphor in relation to a lot of other things, like life being like an individual but collective experience.
Well, the Bible and many other texts, ancient texts, talk about the four corners of the Earth.
Right. And I think the
so-
only way to get around is to have four corners, four cardinal directions, 4 points. And for
Right.
any kind of carpenter to build a structure, you need a foundation. And if you were going to build something on the inside of anything, you would not use anything spherical. Nothing can grab on anything spherical. It just wouldn't. Circular structures aren't strong. They're just not. Like.
No, I that's interesting.
And from a geometric standpoint, you would never build a structure off of a sphere.
Right. Okay.
From an architecture
Right.
standpoint. And my opinion is God created this place and uses all the sciences that we use on a minute scale on a larger grand scale. And that's,
Okay.
that's the way I've kind of dissected it.
Well, I think a lot of the ancient, building structures and things stem from that, and I'm sure that was ancient knowledge that was passed down, which is why they were so advanced, thousands and thousands of years ago, is because they had this knowledge that was either lost or misplaced, or something that was misleading came along and replaced it. So that's interesting. So the Flat Earth Society is a false flag society. Is that correct?
So that's I don't know, that a long time ago there was the group, the Flat Earth Society group, and everybody found out about them when the Flat Earth community started blowing up, and then Obama announced it on television. The Flat Earth Society, they wanted to funnel everybody into the Flat Earth Society because there was a bunch of false information. And the Flat Earth Society was also filled with the Alexander Gleason map. Like,
Okay, sure.
yeah,
Okay.
so like every single celebrity or famous person or popular flat earther that gets their limelight has that map, and that's how I knew it was fake. Like I was like,
Right.
we're just gonna stumble into the truth, and they'd be pushed everywhere by all these main channels and.
Yeah, that's usually a pretty big warning sign now. You know, I mean, I'm very, again, I'm skeptical, and I try to always reserve judgment for the very last moment.
It's like those algorithms that they go through the movement like a virus, like
Right,
Q, and like little things, the investigative like conspiracies that that are just rabbit holes of like time wasting. It's you can
yeah,
almost immediately see if it's gonna just be a time waster, and those are the viruses that like the
I
NPCs
do
get a hold
find
of.
I do find the Q information fascinating.
Hmm.
How much of it I think is factual, and how much of it is a
I
distraction or
believe a lot
whatnot.
of it's true, but I believe they don't do anything about it.
Right.
Like,
Um,
we're gonna
I,
show you the truth, but it doesn't matter. Like,
right. I mean, I'm still, again, I'm trying to reserve judgment on that one because I don't know if it's over yet or not.
I don't either.
Back, yeah, and back in 2015, one of my sources, like I was grilling this guy hard, and he's a very, very trusted, reliable source. And I was like, dude, they own the banks, they run this, they run it all, man. I think, what are we gonna do? You know?
Mhm.
And he just very calmly took a deep breath and said, well, almost as though he was pondering whether or not to actually trust me with this information. But I must have said the right thing at the wrong time, or the right time, or whatever, to get this guy's attention. But I was very fortunate to make this connection. And so he just pauses and says, well, there is right now a group of very talented individuals who are trying to put a stop to it as we speak. And it wasn't until that moment that I actually had a real shred of hope for the future. At that point, I was like, man, this is getting worse and worse, and nobody else seems to see it. Like, I was a lone conspiracy dude. Like, all my friends, I had two friends that I could talk to about this stuff with, and that was it. There was just two friends of my large group of friends, and and so it was very limited. But it wasn't until he told me that, and then 2.5 years later came the first Q post. And shortly after that, I was very, very involved in my business at that time because I just opened. So my business partner and I was just full on business mode. Like, I was working 60 plus hours a week and whatnot. And so, anyways, um, but about 2 months, or about December of that year, 2017, I started to get onto Q, and a few people who were deciphering the posts. So I archived all the posts, nearly 5,000
I
Q
did the
posts.
whole like binge catch up on the Q stories.
Yeah, and I followed a few guys, and again, I like guys who have people guests on their shows that have differing opinions about it, because
Yeah.
it really gives that broad perspective. I try to take the meat and throw away the bone.
I feel like
I
the Q thing, though, a lot of the politics, it's all um, like a soap opera, though. It's hard to prove what's real and what isn't with
Well,
all of it.
and again,
Like,
yeah, and having read some of those posts where they say disinformation is necessary and things like that, it's like, well, that's a lot of deciphering of information, and how do you know what's real, what's not, and like someone said to me, it's probably a psyop, and I said, well, it most likely is, but not for us. It could be for the cabal. It could be something that is throwing them off their game.
yeah. But
And
one
so
thing I do think those kind of movements are good, though. They don't let a lot of certain arguments die that shouldn't die.
oh yeah,
Like they have a cult following that may be bad and toxic to like outsiders, but
yes,
they keep conversations like child trafficking going. They keep
yeah,
yeah, and then they also start like rallies and where they did the whole where they like, what do they call them? Protest. Yeah, I've seen Q do some protests and
Yes.
make people more aware of things that they wouldn't have been aware of, and like,
Yeah, I think so too. And I think that, keeping those discussions, because I mean, I was trying to warn people about Joe Biden back in 2012. I'm like, look at this video, dude.
yeah,
Like, this
it's
guy's a
creepy.
fucking pervert. Like, he's touching little kids in public and they're photo ops. Like,
Yeah, I remember calling him Creepy Joe Biden in like 2014. Like that was his
yeah, yeah.
nickname.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Going back to those days,
Yeah.
like 2012 and 13, when I was really starting to like get, I mean, because 2008, by 2008, October of 2008 to be specific, that's when I knew the agenda. I had about a 2 week shitting my pants. Like, I'm not lying, Preston. I used to go into the grocery stores and I started crying. I started crying in the grocery stores because I was looking around all the food and, just in the abundance and knowing that something was coming and that this norm that we accepted was not going to be there forever. And for about 2 weeks, and I tried to shift my way through it pretty quickly because, and after 9/11, I spent about 2.5 years depressed because I knew all those things that I've been studying before that, researching, and it was happening. It was happening right in front of my eyes. And so it wasn't until about 2004 or so that I really started to get out of that funk. And so when 2008 happened, when I was watching a series videos through a couple different places. One of them was Project Camelot, and there was a video there, and that's when I knew. I was like, oh my god, this shit's gonna fucking happen. Only I thought it was gonna be more imminent. I thought it was gonna be around 2012 that this stuff was gonna take
Oh, is
place.
it the 2012 stuff? Was that what it is?
Not the Mayan stuff, but
Yeah.
I thought the information that I was getting about what's happening now was gonna happen 10 years ago, um, around 2012. Um, and I believe that the timeline's been pushed forward because the cabal, or whatever you want to call them, are trying to win, even though they know they've lost.
Are you a
Uh,
doomsday guy?
no, I'm actually, well, I was up until 2015. I was pretty upset, and like, well, last man standing scenario, I guess. And then when I found out that there was actually people behind the scenes trying to, like, I'm like, no joke, man. I went to my mom's in 2008 and I told her, I went for a drive. I told her, I said, look, she was the first one that believed me. And I filled her basement with about $3,000 worth of food and supplies. I also, I invested about, at that time, about $2,000 in gold and silver and left it at her house. And I told her, I said, listen, when this stuff happens, I will do my best to get out of Toronto, but I don't think I'm going to make it if this goes the way it sounds like it might go. Um, I am now I try to cover all my bases now. I find practical solutions to the Agenda 2030. I'm involved with a group called the Fringe Farm Network, but I also have food and water supplies in my basement. I have a small section of my basement that's, prepared for that, but I try not to, I'm not a prepper. I don't consider myself a prepper because I think those people are like last man standing, sort of, it's all doom and gloom, and I don't like that. I think that that's um, it's the wrong message and it's the wrong mindset. I think it's the wrong mindset to put yourself in that because I lived in that mindset for a while, and when I realized that we create what we project,
Yeah,
um,
exactly. I lived
you
in
know,
that. You once that switch happens from like malevolent to benevolent, there's
yeah.
a difference. You still have the faith in the good in God, and then it's become it. Yeah, it changes you.
A- And I still think that having, and I've always said this for years as someone who was a former Boy Scout, that we should always have, in case of a natural disaster. I mean, look what's happening on the east coast of Canada right now, and with the hurricane and whatnot. I've always said to people, look, you should have 2 to 4 weeks of food and water at all times on a rotating cycle in the event that something catastrophic happens, whether it be the power goes out, the grid goes down, something happens. You can only prepare for the worst. It's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. And
I
I've
can
always been
fast
about.
and drink my pee.
What's that?
Said I can fast and drink my pee.
Yeah, no way. Yeah, well, there you go. And I think that it's important to acknowledge that these things can happen, but also project a future where it doesn't happen.
Right.
I think that is the biggest part of live every day as though it's your last, but plan as though you're going to be here forever. And that to me is kind of how I live my life. I'm not a doom and gloomer. I'm not a, you know, it's all going to fall apart and we're all going to die
Right. I'm
kind of
about the
guy.
same way as you. I would say I'm about the same. Like I'd like to be a little prepared. I accept things as they come, and yeah, believe in the good, and yeah, live like it's your last day, and like you want to live to see grandkids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean I feel like that's sort of living in both worlds and not allowing yourself, like it's again, like I said, like I'd rather have these things and not need them. I mean, what's the best thing that's going to happen, right? I'm going to have a year's worth of food. What's the worst that's going to happen? I'm going to have a year's worth of food, right?
Right.
So either way, I don't have to go shopping until next April.
And it'll save you
And
money.
yeah, I've got about, I think I've got about 400 liters of water, which at a liter a day, if it's rationed, should last me over a year. And then a little bit that I give my cat or whatever. So I got a year's worth of food for her and stuff. I also like to buy in bulk and stock up. Like I've just always been like that, but more so since for the last 15 or so years. Um, but um, but yeah, I mean, I don't like to doom and gloom. I think there's a lot of people out there who don't. I mean, I think it was what's it named? Fuck, Bill Wood, I think his name is. Anyways, he did a video and it circulated around for a while. I remember seeing his videos years ago, and when this circulated around, something he did back in 2010, um, where he was talking about project uh the oh, what's it called? Um,
Veritas. I don't know.
no, the uh oh shit, it's the damn
Paperclip.
it. No, no, it's the specific kind of oh shit, I'm losing my mind here. It's bugging me that I can't think of it. Um, it's the mirror. People can see into the future with it.
Oh, like the Akashic records.
No, it's a specific. It was a government project. It was it was developed and designed by the military.
CERN.
Uh, no, no, it's
No.
although CERN may be doing the same thing.
Oh, there
Uh,
was a movie on this mirror. They could kind of like do something in the future. It was a musician. Was it Illusionist, where he almost plays like Tesla character?
well, they do, yeah. They in Prestige, they definitely touch base
It's
on
something
that as
like that.
well.
Yeah.
But Project Looking Glass, that's what it is. Sorry, Project Looking Glass, and he said, in this video, this short video, I can send them. I'll find it and send it in to you in your messenger afterwards. I'll just put it down here. Looking Glass video, where he says, in that video, um, he was a project analyst. Like he used to look at missions, like a mission analyst, like and
Hmm.
try and find the best way to do a military mission, right? And that was his specialty. When this Looking Glass, Operation Looking Glass, when this had, he says there was a critical point, and this is back in 2010 when he was doing this lecture, and he says in 2010 there was a problem when they got to 2012, where something was going to happen, something big, and all the data, everything, they brought him in specifically to analyze the data. And he says, I analyzed it, I looked at all the information, compiled all this stuff, and it was right. Something big was coming, and they couldn't figure out what it was. And so he goes on to say, and this is again in 2010, he says, at first I thought it was the end of the world. Then I realized it was the end of their world. And if I had to give a name to this event, I would see it's an awakening process. So he could see that something was going to happen, and he said any of their attempts to control the information is going to have an opposite effect on the public, and that the public is going to wake up in some way. And he also says in this little bit, it's about a 10-minute lecture, part of a lecture, where he says, if I could tell you people anything, one piece of advice, it's that the things we think happen. If someone says a major thing is going to happen on a certain time and date, it usually happens, which is what this whole, September 24th thing. I believe that was put out there to draw people's
Focus.
focus and energy into that event.
Right. Same thing with like 9/11. Everybody witnessed it on the TV. Everybody got to participate in this monolithic mirror.
Yeah.
And once it's shattered, then people start waking up. And that's...
Yes. And I think that's, because he says, they stopped using Project Looking Glass. He's like, they stopped using it. And not only did they stop using it, but they didn't want anyone to know what it was saying, that something big was coming. And so he thought, and again, it's a fantastic little video, but I'm of the mind again that our minds are more powerful, than we've ever been led to believe. They're dumbing us down. They're poisoning our brains with chemicals, and our food and our water and everything else.
That's how I got to the manifestation, placebo, reap what you sow, sleep your bed, you making it. That literally the luminaries taught me all this stuff. Like, if I see my own sun and moon, and I figured out I'm projecting them all, then literally creating my own reality. And then I started thinking about video games. Like, have you ever put a t-shirt on and it makes you feel better? And that feeling of feeling better is like an attribute, like a video game. And everything in this world has interactive. And then I started thinking about all these different quotes. I remember something about not Elon Musk, but Tesla said, if you give a woman a rose, it will make her happy. And because they're just literally designed that way.
Right.
Like, and like the rose has an attribute to it, like a video game, that when you hand it to a woman, no matter what, it's just that way. And like,
right.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's fascinating, because I agree. I think that even when I apply that to a very basic level of making a to-do list, you're shaping your day. You're constructing your day. Some people wake up in chaos and go to sleep in chaos. There's no rhyme or reason to what they do. That's specific. There may be some form of order to their chaos, but I still think when people manifest their own reality by, as simple as getting up, having a shower, and then
if I don't tell myself I'm getting up at 3:30 in the morning, and then I just wake up the next day, I don't want to get up out of bed. But if I say I'm getting up at 3:30, I'm going to go do this, and this, I get up and do this, and this, without question, because I've told myself to do that before I go. Like, you're programming yourself.
You're making something in your mind manifest, and I've never seen that or had that happen to me any more, obviously, than when I started my own business. I worked in the cannabis industry for a number of years, 15 years. I worked for the largest head shop. I worked for a major seed bank. I worked at a compassion club before there were dispensaries, for patients only, way back, 15 years ago. And so when I decided to leave in 2016, and I was going to leave, and I give my notice and move on to open my own business, my own head shop. I never in my life experienced that more than when I was creating my own business. Like, I had a vision. I wanted to create a business, a brand, and every day I would work on my business plan for months. For about 6 months, I worked on it, put it together, honed it, and then when it became a reality, it was. I mean, again, I worked 360 out of 365 days that first year. Like, I took 5 non-consecutive days off in that first year, and I loved every second of it. I was just so thrilled. like that I just, I had made this, and of all the people I worked with at this company, I was the first one. Everyone talked about me. Talk is cheap, and I learned that. Everyone, oh, I'll open my own business and start my own, blah blah blah. Well, I was the first one that actually did it, out of the 15 people I worked with or so.
I've been thinking
Um,
about starting my own chauffeur business instead of working for Uber. Been thinking about
okay.
getting into it, but I don't know yet.
Well, you know what?
Procrastinating.
Well, it's when you did make that decision to do it. I had just been through a series of 2 weeks of absolute hell. My father had a massive stroke. I had a major infestation of cockroaches in my apartment. I had a huge, massive blowout with one of my coworkers at work, who was a manager, and I had seniority over him, but I wasn't a manager, and we had this huge thing. And also, I was punched in the eye. I was sucker punched by some guy. So all this stuff happened in the span of like 2 weeks, and it was just a complete and I just said, that's it, fuck it. I'm leaving the city and I'm starting my own business. And at first I was like, well, maybe I was just having a bad few weeks, and then I thought, you know what? No, I can do this. And I found, my business partner, my best friend and business partner, and he wanted to leave and do the same thing. We both had money to invest in a business. And then the rest of it was just putting the plan together. So every night after work, I'd work 10 hours plus 2 hours in commuting there and back. So 12 hours, I'd come home, spend 2 to 3 hours working on the business plan. And then, like, I know when you really want something, you hear those stories of someone who, went to night school and got their degree, and they were working two jobs and they made it happen. That's the kind of mindset I was in. I was like, if I really want this, I have to do it, and I have to be present, mentally and spiritually, to do it. And I have to put the time in. And then when it all came to pass the way it did, like, when we opened the doors, I mean, I was just like, holy shit, I couldn't believe it, and neither could any of my friends. They were really, a few of them were like, holy crap, he actually did it. And of course, 3 years later, 6 weeks into 2 weeks to flatten the curve, and we closed the doors. But those 3 years, I mean, I'd never seen more success in my life, and not just the financial success, because I made more money working for someone else in the city, but I was able to do this on my own, call the shots, make my own investments on the side, that again are now affording me the ability to sort of do whatever I want.
Right.
I I never felt more successful than I did when I was running that business. Um, I, I was very proud of what I'd done. I learned a lot, but I enjoyed every second of it. There wasn't any time when I was like, oh, I don't want to go into work. Every morning I got up, did my thing, you know,
Is
and
it
I
your
bent
own
over.
baby, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I bent over backwards for my customers. I mean, I'd open the store up for them after hours. If I saw someone on the street and I wasn't going somewhere, and they're like, "Hey, man, I'm looking at getting this." Like, come on, let's go. We're really right now? Yeah, come on. And open up the store for them. A couple hours after closing or whatever, and or I'd stay late with them, or I'd offer them products and services and things that weren't normally accepted within that realm. So. I bent over backwards for them because I was so happy to be there, and not just for them, but for myself. So, when you make that decision to really take charge of your life, that people who are successful in life, um, it's not just a state of mind. It's it's putting into action what the state of mind that you're in, right? It's putting into action those things. Um, so yeah, I think that going back to that, I think the manifestation of those things comes from that thought process of being on a specific track, on a thought process, a a lot, and then taking that and putting into action. You know,
Yeah, like I feel like I have this
and
purpose.
because I wanted to
Hmm.
start a business with another guy.
Yeah, I feel like I have a purpose, and that's um, I want to like keep my business around this purpose, right? And I feel like
Right.
I don't ever want to let it go. I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but I feel like I haven't let it go, and I feel like I've always been put here to change the world, and I want to be in a science book someday. And I've told people I'm going to be in a science book someday.
Sure.
And I said that a long time ago that I would change the world, and I feel like I have a key to a science thing that needs to be like scratched. So I feel like I lose hope a lot with it, but I feel like it grows every time I scratch it. Like,
Oh, sure.
yeah,
Absolutely. I think it's time and pressure and wisdom along with that you have um, to really get from it what you want, and also perseverance. I think is the biggest thing. Like at any time during that process, I could have just given up
hmm
and just said, "Oh, this is too much work." But I just had this vision, and it was so vivid that I felt like it was uh, uh, like a calling almost, like a like you say, like you feel something. There's something bigger than you that's pushing through you
hmm
and
well, I feel a
keeping you going.
fulfillment when I get to see those eyes unlock, and then like I can see the brain start switching as I'm talking.
Mhm.
Nothing replaces that feeling for me. I don't know what it's like a drug. Uh, Watching their eyes, I can literally see their whole worldview change. Like,
Yeah.
like, what's going on?
You mean when you're talking about flat Earth stuff?
Oh, when I'm
Flat Earth?
talking about the
Yeah.
sun and the moon, that's mainly not so much flat Earth. I stepped away from flat Earth discussions a lot. I mainly just talk about the sun and the moon. I feel like
Right.
those are the two biggest smoking guns that are just like, it's
Right.
so obvious. Like, it's.
Right.
I stayed on the flat Earth discussion for so long. I just felt like we can only see so far, we can only prove so much, but I can definitely prove these lights right here are
Right.
close. Like, so that's how that was going for me. Because I feel like I was just treading water with flat Earth. I couldn't get anywhere with it. Like,
Yeah.
and yeah, I literally went to the woods one day and was meditating, and I felt like I started having a full blown conversation with God. And He was like, "I got a gift for you, but you can't let it be a burden." And
Right.
and and then boom, all the observations started coming to me. Like, it was wild. It was wild. Like, I started to be able to
Yeah.
explain it and find the words for it, and like I was like, "What is going on?" Like, like,
Yeah. I think it's a fascinating topic. Of all the stuff that I've studied, it's definitely the most controversial, I think. But I can understand why. It's very thick layering of propaganda and programming.
try to get people to believe that these physical objects are no longer physical, and they're like holograms. When they're like, I feel heat from it though. Like their little programming won't stop like the other
Yeah.
experience that they're actually having.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's. I run it. The Matrix is probably. I remember when I first woke up and I was like, I used to think, there's no way The Matrix is a true story. This movie can't be this good, this right, this predictable. And then over the years, it just slowly kept getting more accurate. As I got smarter, it just became more insanely accurate. And like, that's why I don't believe some lonely black woman wrote The Matrix. I don't. I believe the elites collectively made that movie. There's too much science in it for one human being, especially an author, a writer, to do that themselves of any type, of any like. There's too much intelligent information in that for one person just to make that movie themselves.
And I quite often, like you were saying about that sort of like feeling of a download, right?
Mm-hmm.
I also believe that that is divine knowledge being passed down, and that someone like that can be picking up that or having that information downloaded to them in order to write that, but it didn't come directly from them. It came from something else. Now,
Right.
whether they were, so I
Well, I believe it
agree.
was. I believe God puts the truth in our face through movies, like
Yeah.
without the people that's creating it knowing it, and like
Yeah.
before,
Oh, yeah.
and then they sit back and watch it, and like, oh, people can perceive it this way,
Well,
and yeah.
I'm like I said, I'm a film enthusiast. I have a film library with nearly 2,000 movies in it. Hello,
This is Charlotte.
hi Charlotte. I'm Mark.
This is Mark.
Hi, Mark.
How you doing?
This is my little flat earther.
Nice. So you know all about this stuff, eh?
I try to teach her as much as possible.
Yeah, he teaches me Spanish.
She's
That's
learning
good.
Spanish. So.
Like,
Bueno.
uno, dos, tres, cuatro, cinco, seis,
Why don't you go lay down?
Yeah, I've got a film library with about close to 2,000 movies in it, right?
Mhm.
And you know, I post and I made a post recently explaining to people like, look, when I'm posting things, I'm posting a movie that I'm watching. I'm not just watching it for entertainment. There's another reason why I'm watching it. There's something, either a scene or a phrase or
I think about this all the time. I get memories, and I believe memories are put there by an angel, a demon, God, or you for you to remember them for a specific reason. And if you can't think of that reason, you should brainstorm on it for a long time while you're thinking of that one photographic memory of a movie that's popped up in your head, and then now you're watching it. There's something in there that you're supposed to see that you're not quite getting. That's
absolutely.
my opinion. There's a reason you
Oh.
have memories. Yeah.
Oh, I agree. I wholeheartedly, and I think that, and I studied film and television too in Toronto, film and television production. I find that the art, film as an art form, I think it is one of the most superior, for my own reasons. I believe because it encompasses
So
so many
you're
other.
you're all into the same stuff I'm into then. So have you ever seen The Green Knight?
I haven't yet. No, I'm gonna buy a copy of it. I'm gonna write that down now because I just saw a preview for it.
So have you ever seen The Golden Compass?
No, I heard about it though.
Have you seen Westworld?
Oh, I've got a blackboard poster of it in my house. Yes.
You like it? Okay. Well, the cloning, the spirit moving. Well,
Okay.
Golden Compass talks about this. The new Pinocchio movie talks about this. What was the first one? Prestige kind of shows it. The Green Knight kind of shows it. If you take all these movies and those scenes from this movie, you get a kind of a picture of how they like do it.
Oh, you know, one I watched recently touching on that was the Sixth Day with Schwarzenegger. Someone else in my house eating my birthday cake,
Yeah.
and it wasn't me. It was my family. Um, that one's about cloning as well. It's this Sixth Day. Um, and again,
You ever seen Multiplicity?
yes, yes, fantastic movie, hilarious.
Yeah, that's a great movie. That was cloning before cloning was popular, right?
But yes, absolutely, and I think living in Canada, from what I've heard, some of my sources are telling me that Canada is one of the largest operations for cloning in the world.
See, when I was a kid, I lived from the Bible Belt, right, in Georgia, Mississippi. So cloning was like extremely like blasphemous, like. So when even as to me as a kid, they brought it up in class, like most of the class was like, "Oh, God would be mad." I remember like all the kids saying this,
Right.
like, and they were like, "What about humans?" And you heard like, "Oh my God!" Like you actually heard these from children in a class, like you know what I mean, like. So I think they were like, "Oh, they've cloned everybody but a human," and I'm like, "Oh." Everybody was like, "Yeah, right. They've probably done that too." Even kids were like, "Yeah, right. They've probably done that too." Like,
Yeah,
they're telling us to see if we're okay with it. That's what.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
cloning sheep. I'm like, that's just soft. I mean, they're just sticking their feet in the water to see how people will
react to it. Yeah, it's conditioning.
And conditioning, 100%. And I, after seeing films like, again, like I love watching film. Like I find when someone goes to a movie and they're just like, yeah, I liked it, or I didn't like it. It's like, well, what did you really get out of it?
Do you think they have clones that like go bad? Kind of like Westworld 2, you know, where they keep bringing him back to life, but it keeps malfunctioning. Remember when Hillary started to have her malfunctions? Like,
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Well, the Westworld, the movie, the original movie.
Oh yeah, it's an old book, right?
Well, directed by Michael Crichton, the guy who wrote Jurassic Park and all those other. He actually directed it, and if you watch the original movie, it's more broad strokes
Mm.
on some of the themes they elaborate on in the series. But I still find, like where, it's like, well, because they keep integrating and bringing back the same gunslinger in the movie, right? Only they upgrade his sensory, all of his senses and whatnot, to the point where he's absolutely like a killer, a completely like
Demolition
unstoppable,
Man.
unstoppable killer. And so, yeah, like Demolition Man, yeah. So you can see how the technology that exists out there. Like, I believe there's some very scary stuff that's out there. Now,
Yeah,
I
but
think,
I think this is my own little personal conspiracy that insects are uh, like sentient computers for God, or like the realm. Like the Earth is alive and the bugs take information. I know that sounds crazy as hell, but
no, that's interesting.
yeah,
That's
yeah. I
very
don't.
fascinating. Which is interesting why they want us to eat bugs now. Why they want to feed us
Well, and we're
bugs.
filled with parasites. We're filled with all kinds of
Yeah.
stuff. They're everywhere.
Um,
You ever seen the movies where the bugs are actually the little movies where they're actually in control of everything?
yeah. No. Yeah.
Yeah.
Watching Fringe,
Hmm.
the show Fringe. There's lots of stuff about microscopic and parasites and organisms and manufactured insects and things like that that
Man,
are.
COVID really woke up a lot of people to parasites.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was a
My theory, and I share this with other people, but I kept
COVID was a good thing, in my opinion.
well, I tell people, I tell people, there's no such thing as a virus that was released. It was a parasite, and they're like, oh no. I said, well, think about it. Why was why were ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine, which are anti-parasitic,
Parasitic killers, yeah.
why were they the ones that were
Well,
like
I think
when it comes,
mainly people are just having parasitic diets, and they're eating a lot of pork, and they're
which is
sick to be generally, yeah.
which could be how it all started.
Yeah.
And I think
And flu season
uh,
came around, and boom, everybody got sick.
and it just
And
escalated from
along with
there.
the manifestation, placebo, they put the message out. They showed everybody flopping on the ground. They saw it. They believed it.
Oh
And
yeah.
then boom, they manifested it too. And then everybody's like all in it.
Oh,
And then the
100%.
people who believed it were experiencing, it, and the people who didn't believe it weren't experiencing it.
Yeah, I
So,
think so too, and I think that may have been what he was talking about in that video about when he was talking about Project Looking Glass, about how whatever they do will have an opposite effect. It's woken people up,
hmm.
and I think that's what's allowed people to really see.
And some
I
people will
mean,
stay in denial, though. They will,
well, I
yeah,
think there's a percentage of people who would just never. That's just, it's not for them. The truth is just not for them.
right.
I believe that there are a lot of NPCs out there as well. They're soulless beings, or they're just sort of operating on some sort of program.
My favorite people
Um,
to argue with though are the half woke truthers. That's my thing. I like
One's on the fence.
I no, I feel like no, the people that think they're wide awake and been in the truth moment a while, they still don't know how to think. They've been like they regurgitate and they repeat. I talk about this all the time.
Right.
Like
Yeah, I see your
yeah,
post about that.
yeah, the regurgitation stuff. It's kind of like they're just more in for entertainment than they are truth.
Or the sensationalism of it. Yeah.
Sensationalism, the dopamine, the serotonin kicks, like
The like.
that's what they're
Yeah.
into. Yeah.
I had a discussion with, well, it was an argument with a lady who, she just felt like I tried to explain, like, lady, I've been doing this for 30 years.
Hmm.
Okay, you don't know what they're doing out there. I'm like, yes, I've been telling people for over a decade that this is going to happen. Well, have you seen
I
Follow
was
the Cabal? And I'm like, oh boy. So and I said, well, you're not a
I was
conspiracy
reading
theorist. You
I was
just.
reading my brother.
Hold on.
Oh,
What'd you say?
I was reading my brother a bedtime story,
Okay.
but he did say yes. and he looked a little tired, so I left him alone, and I told him if you
Did I
want
just
to...
tell you to go lay down?
Sorry.
Have you brushed your teeth? Okay.
So you know, I said, you know, like I said, that's why I say I've studied conspiracy culture rather than say I'm a conspiracy theorist, because
Mm-hmm.
I've never come up with these theories really on my own. I'm really just studying other people's work.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a conspiracy theorist. Oh, I came up with one theory, but that's it, only one, and that's very complex and convoluted. But other than that, I mean, I'm not a theorist. I'm someone that studies other people's theories. And I tried to explain this to her,
I
and she
come up with
wasn't.
all kinds of ideas.
Well, that's good. You should write them down and start a book. Like I
I
think
just
that's
post. I post all the time. I'll come up with like questions and I'll make statements, and then other people relate to it and be like, you know what? That I don't know. Like I feel like some people aren't blessed. I know this sounds egomaniac, but some people just don't have the ability to think. Like
no, I
come up
agree.
with original ideas, and I don't. I've been blessed. Thank God. Like I feel like get thoughts to me all the time that I haven't heard before, or like
No,
so.
I think there are a lot of people out there that are like you and others that are conduit for this
Mhm.
knowledge. You know, they're a conduit to have these epiphanies and put it out there on social media, or you know, write a book or whatever. And it's not a programming thing. It's not an agenda. You're just like
I'm a
it's divine
wanderer.
knowledge.
I feel
And
like
it's
if I just sit there and wonder about something, the idea will come to me. Uh,
right.
yeah, and
And
I honestly believe that. Like every time I just go out and sit by myself, if I'm
and
problem
how many
solving, it'll come to me. Like,
but how many people spend the time like you do to meditate? Not very many.
I
Some
don't really. I
people
just call it thinking. I guess.
yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Sure, no. Um I was going to touch on something that I found really fascinating, and that is that I believe what we're engaged in to an extent right now is do you know about David Lewis Anderson?
Maybe. I don't know.
David Lewis Anderson. Do you know Freeman Fly? Do you ever see his videos at all from back in the day?
uh,
So Freeman Fly is he
I'm
comes from a
pretty unplugged from most things, unless it's
well,
super mainstream or.
well, Freeman Fly. I used to watch a lot of his videos with his wife Jamie Hanshaw, and so Freeman Fly comes from a family of Freemasons, right? But
Mhm.
he's never sworn an oath or anything like that. I remember in one of his videos, he was talking about some stuff in one of these books, these ancient texts from his family, right? He's like, well, I can't really. I'll just describe the picture. I can't show you because they might kill me if I do." But anyways, um, so he had a lot of guests on, a lot of cool people. Stuart Swerdlow's one of them. I found his work through him.
I've been thinking
Um,
about joining a lodge.
yeah,
Yeah.
just for the just for the knowledge, eh?
I mean, my opinion on it is why not? Why
Yeah,
not? Like, what? I mean, I'm not getting anywhere here.
yeah,
Like,
that's true.
that's the way I look at it. Like, what would it hurt me?
Well,
Like,
I know that there is, like I was saying, a lot of infighting within
mhm.
these groups, because some of them are like, whoa, we didn't sign up to kill 6 billion people. We're not into that.
But this is another conspiracy that this isn't my original idea, but um, uh, they don't kill anybody. We do it.
We do it. Oh yeah,
We do it.
precisely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. They talk us into it
yeah,
and like propagate us to do it. They don't do shit.
yeah.
So they're not really evil. They prey off of humans' dark snake, that evil wolf inside of us. They feed the evil wolf instead of the good wolf. And there's two serpents inside of us, and they know which one to feed. That's my opinion. Like,
No, I agree wholeheartedly. I think that's very accurate. Um, so what I was going to say about David Lewis Anderson
mhm.
and the Anderson Institute in the States is what they experiment there with is time control technology. Have you heard about this?
Time control.
Yeah, time control technology. I believe that I'll send you that link as well to that video. It's very fascinating. He talks about um, talks about. I think they're at that time in 2010, they were on their third or fourth generation device. I'd have to go look it up again, but for time control technology. And he said that there's one country right now that is blowing, leaving everyone in the dust as far as time control technology. They're so advanced, they have practical commercial applications ready to roll out, um, and that is the country of India.
Yeah. So, so I've thought about time travel, and I think about the sun and the moon and everything going east to west and everything traveling from east to west. And if they have underground tunnels that can go a certain miles per hour, and if they're able to loop back in reverse of the sun a certain amount of speed and maintain that speed for over a certain amount of time, that they would actually end up back in time. But they could only do it through the underground subway tunnels that go like 1,000 miles per hour, and they showed this kind of in a movie once. Now they were using time travel with the dumb tunnel, the dumb's underground
Yeah,
tunnels. Yeah.
military bases.
And
Yeah.
I looked over at my wife at the exact moment they showed the speed, the tunnel, and the underground. Like, it's right in our face.
Well, time travel to me, the concepts of it, when he describes it, I mean, I think on a basic level, I mean, if you're driving a vehicle, when you push down on the accelerator, you move faster. You
Come
get
on.
to your destination. Um,
It's almost.
It's almost out. All right, keep going.
No worries. No worries. No. When you're driving a vehicle, if you push down on the accelerator, you get to your destination faster,
Yep.
right? So if you speed that up, right,
Mhm.
you're traveling through. We're all
And then we're
traveling
back
through
to
time.
belief, right? And the
Yeah,
theory of relativity. The quicker you think you're moving, your adrenaline's moving, the quicker you get there. The slower you think you're moving, the more relaxed you are, the slower you get there.
exactly.
Yeah.
This is about an hour. I think it's a little over an hour. I think the interview that Freeman does.
This is what they're
with,
talking about in that Matt Damon, not Matt Damon, the who's the cool Texas actor?
McConaughey.
McConaughey. Yeah, he goes to space and it becomes relative to his energy and how far
Interstellar.
he's away. Yeah, yeah, and then everybody ages.
Yeah,
It's all a relative thing, though. It's
yeah,
always relative, right? It's same
yeah,
thing like Event Horizon, where like that ship goes through the portal and it's like
yeah.
thousands of years old. I often think that time travel may be done with something like a Stargate.
Well, he touches on some of that.
Let me use the bathroom real quick. Hold on. Hold that
Oh
thought.
yeah, sure.
Yeah. All right. All right, I'm back.
Okay, just one sec. Uh,
So the movie Golden Compass I asked you about, they have a scene in that movie where they're stealing kids' superpowers and they take them to the North Pole and they steal their spirit from them. And when they take their spirit from them, the child loses their spirit animal. All the kids in the movie have like some animal that's their spirit creature. And then they take them to the North Pole and they scare the living shit out of them. And they put them in this box that separates them from their spirit animal.
okay. Golden Compass. I'm gonna write that one down.
It's a good
I-
movie.
I've heard of
It's a good movie.
it.
Underrated.
So I just sent that link for that video to you on your messenger. Uh, it's like I said, it's a little over an hour, I think, but it's fascinating stuff. And in that, he talks about how we could be um, in the future, and this is 2010. We could be at a point in the future where we have our first time war, and and I find that fascinating because I think about, Trump and his ties to Tesla and Tesla technology and stuff, and I think like it's very possible that in some way we are engaged in some kind of time war. What that means, I mean the possibilities are endless, really. Um,
But in a time where, like, in my opinion, the people in those moments will never know that that
yeah,
person. Yeah, it's kind of like you're just in the moment.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like all of that stuff, like like uh, you talk about um, you know, past and present and future. Like he says in this interview, I just find this stuff incredibly fascinating. He says in the interview that time travel is possible, and it's not only possible, but you can, if you have the ability to, you can break down the properties, the equations for time travel into basic algebra. Like that's how simple it can be, and so I think, because I always say, like if you want to pollute the air, pollute the water, fine, pollute the food, whatever. Don't mess with our timelines, you know, like that to me is
I think
fun.
the I think the water has a filtration system where it goes out kind of to another dimension and then comes back through a filtration system into another
Really?
dimension. Yeah, I think the water through the firmament, the heavens, where it comes down from the rain's
Okay.
coming literally from another portal. Have you ever seen? Oh, thank you. Her tooth fell out. There you go. Her
Oh, well,
first tooth fell out. There you go. I'll save it for mommy, okay?
Daddy, it's bleeding.
Good job.
I was like pushing it down and then it fell out. I want it.
You want it? I'll save it right there. You don't want to lose it, okay?
Oh my gosh.
Now you can eat.
Now I can eat?
Yeah, didn't it hurt?
Finally.
All right. Daddy's gonna keep the conversation. You happy? All right. Go watch your movie. She's super excited.
see, that's big stuff.
Yeah.
So what? She's in what, grade 1 then, or grade 2?
She's 6. Yeah. She's in grade 1.
Okay, yeah. I figure that's about the right time to start listening to you. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, no, I find the possibilities of time, and I find all of that like very, very. Um, I find it fascinating on a level that I just most people can't grab. I think they think it's some sort of science fiction, but having watched that video and done some research, I find it's not only to me it's not only possible. It's just technology that is not widely explained or known about. Um,
Yeah.
I find
That's my thing. Like, so if you're inside of an individual experience, um, like, when could you separate into another's experience? That's
right.
right. And that's when the whole consciousness thing starts to dive to me. So if we're in a plane of existence and that plane is static existence, like that's when I start to get confused on the whole time travel. And like, does it matter if somebody goes east or west? If I inside of my own experience, like that's where I think it's more like a computer system. There's something that can manipulate those parameters,
I need for the tooth fairy.
and half of it has to do with belief. Like,
Well, I think you're right, and I think that this technology it's like a computer. Life is like a computer program, but these are like shortcuts.
have you
These
seen
are
that movie
like
Looper?
yes, yes.
Yeah, that was a pretty good one.
Yeah, it's interesting because in this video he also talks about at the Anderson Institute, I think once a month, all of the people that work there have to engage in some kind of discussion or uh, um, about time that's outside of their work, like a movie or a book or something, right?
Hmm.
Um, where they're constantly um, looking at this from a completely different perspective. You said for a while they had a device, and the information that they were getting back was different. They thought something about they had made a previous conclusion that was all wrong,
Hmm.
and they had to revisit the whole thing from a different perspective because they realized one of their experiments had shown them that their hypothesis, or sort of the conclusions that they were drawing, were wrong based on the hypothesis, the original hypothesis. So they, yeah, he said that the it's the time field space is a 2 by 2 meter, right?
Right. So
Space.
here's a Peaky Blinders, and what's the other one? Altered Carbon. You seen either one of these?
Altered carbon, yes.
You seen Altered Carbon?
Yeah.
That's a great one on time travel and switching bodies and cloning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that another, I think the again, I think when you get down to brass tacks about society and the world that we've been living in, or I say we, but most people have been living in, I think it becomes um, fairly obvious that we've been put into a very, very small box. And that's not just, physically, but our thoughts as well. We're not allowed to think outside of that box.
So there's a
Um,
scene in Peaky Blinders where the war was won because a tunnel was dug and information was gotten there like 6 hours earlier than the enemy got their information. My thinking was they did it through some kind of time travel. Like, so the leaders of our world have always been able to come up with the exact weapon they need to defeat their enemy with technology. Like the samurai, they had to pull the chain gun out with them. When they were able to use something, they found a slightly better weapon to beat them. They always had the slightly better weapon to maintain the control over their enemy. Like, how did they know this and get the exact modified technology, one up, but not too far up, so we wouldn't get on a time scale, but just slightly better enough to defeat their enemies? Like, they knew it throughout time, every single time, what they needed to defeat their enemies.
well, someone actually said this to me very recently. We talked about how, uh, um, she was saying to me, she's like, it's always just find it weird. She's one of the smartest people I know, and she said, I always find it weird how every time they try to push this agenda of this or that, it always somehow gets thwarted. Like it's not, like uh, the vaccine mandates or this and that or whatever they're pushing on us. For some reason, it always ends up not happening the way they thought it would. So I agree. I think that I
I think they're
believe
going to start
that.
telling people the truth, and then they're not going to believe it.
Well, that's just it. I think that there's a
Yeah.
lot of folks, even like you said, who are consider themselves awake and open-minded to all this, and that are just they're not gonna believe.
Even the
They're
truth.
just
Yeah.
they're gonna be blown away, and that's one of the things that Q said is that the truth is not for everyone. Not everyone is gonna accept this knowledge when it's released, and I still think it's coming. I think there's gonna be massive drops, and it's gonna be big information that comes out, whether it's Hunter Biden's laptop or something
See, my thing is
ex-
like it would have came out already. I've seen all the stuff on Hunter Biden's laptop, and I'm sure millions of people have seen this. Like
yeah.
that, the people in power have seen this. The people, like the most powerful people in the world, have all seen this laptop. If I've seen it through a couple of YouTube searches, so have they.
Yeah, but it makes me wonder how the
It's
collective.
scripted almost.
Well, it feels like sometimes, but
It's
I
done on
also wonder.
purpose.
Yeah, I feel sometimes like there's a collective consciousness, and that consciousness, there's folks like us
Well,
we're
like you think
outside of
about something and then you see an ad for it. It's similar to that.
yeah, it can be, and which reminds me a lot of Minority Report, right? How they, in that movie they advertise to the people by scanning their retinas, and then they have targeted advertisements for that person.
My
Um,
personal opinion is that the sky is alive, and each one of our brains connect to the stars, and then we each transmute signals like the Riddler did in Batman, like with that
yes,
machine. It's
yes,
similar to that our brain actually connects to the firmament, and then all of our thoughts. I honestly believe like our thoughts create like cloud structures. Like when you see animals in the clouds, and certain that was a human thought. Like that's my
yeah. I think that again, like going back to what I was saying earlier about how like the power of our brain is far greater than we even know are aware of, which is crazy because that's where it all starts is the brain. But it's
consciousness.
so yeah, consciousness, but I think it's a level like I don't know if it's a 5D thing or if it's one of those like like a whole like frequency thing, where it's just we're not vibrating on a specific frequency. I but I feel like our brains um and maybe some of it is um information that needs to get out there so that our brains can get on the same page, and that's when we start to overcome these things. We start to see the truth out there, and by that at that point it'll be the majority of people. So the few people that aren't are really just not evolving. They're staying in that consciousness, that level, and the rest of us are going to evolve into a higher consciousness. Even if we live on the same plane of existence, our awareness and our consciousness will be much greater than that of the average person. And that um, I still feel like there's a lot that's going to happen in the next few months. I still feel like there's a lot of things that are going to take place. A big one back in July, just of this year, July 14th, a few months ago, I posted something about the Queen being dead, and a bunch of my friends are like, "What? The Queen's not dead?" I'm like, "Yeah, she's been dead for a while. It just hasn't been announced to the public yet."
Have you seen the Bill Gates has been dead for a while too, right?
I heard he was put to death in 2014 by the people of India.
Yeah, he was killed. Uh, I saw a report. It was like 1994.
Oh, really?
He's been dead for a long time because you always see those pictures of like his wife and him, and where they don't look the same anymore. Those are
Yeah,
clones. And this
yeah.
brings me back to the altered carbon situation. You know, he was brought back to life to find out who his killer was.
Yes, yes, yes.
This is the same story of Bill Gates, in my opinion. They killed Bill Gates, and Bill Gates brought this killer back to life to go find these killers in India. And he kills dudes from India in that show. So it's kind of
Weird.
interesting.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, I and yeah, I find that fascinating. I think that again, this idea of consciousness and transferring your consciousness to
To another body.
another body or entity, it's becoming more to me.
Well,
It's
when you
becoming
start to
more and
realize
more.
how water can hold memory over lifetimes of
Yes,
everything, so like every bit of water can hold a whole lifetime of memory. So
yeah,
that when you know that, you understand that the possibilities of transfer are endless. Like a piece of glass inside your little iPad can like be a whole computer system. Like it
yeah,
can hold all that memory.
yeah,
Now, that's a limitless possibility of what creation could do. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. And I think that that's the
the little
kind
things
of
blow my mind. The fact we're sitting here talking through screens, data comes through fucking wires. Like, what is that? Like,
I
pictures
know.
come through wires. I still don't understand how that works to
Well,
this
I
day, and
mean,
I've studied it a lot. I don't get it.
it is very. I mean, I find that sort of thing fascinating too because it's like, I mean, this sort of conversation wasn't possible except by phone for many, many years. But even before that, our correspondence would have been by letter. It would have been by handwritten notes and letters
Yep, the postman.
prior to that. And to even know each other was through social media. We met through a whole series of algorithms and weird connections
But
And
these
I
ideas have come all around because even people writing books about things like science fiction, it became, like you're saying, the idea was in, then it became real. The books, I think, see, like a lot of science fiction will create like an invention, and then because it'll be like, oh, that was in a book, I think I can make it. And then that person made the
right.
invention, and then boom, all of a sudden it's an item. And I often feel like that. Have you ever seen the movie where the guy's talking on an SOS to his father on the radio? It's a frequency. Is that what it is? It's an old movie, mid '90s
Okay.
movie.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, his
Frequency.
father
Okay. Yeah.
dies, and then he starts talking to him,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
it's like on a timeline. They're like 30 years apart. That was an interesting movie. I figure you've seen that one since you're into like time and
Yeah.
technology.
I mean, I think it's I mean I find these concepts fascinating on more than just an entertainment level. Like you, I like to think about it. I like to
I
like
see
I
that you're
made
really into the fantasy movies too. I feel like they often will give us more. We won't reject it as much because it is fantasy. But I
yes,
often think they purposely put truth in fantasy, and God does too, because it's not so much plain sight, but as you're enjoying it. But like
right.
I see the blatant messages way more in fantasy movies than I do in anything else.
Yeah, science fiction and fantasy I think go together in many respects. And my collection is separated into five genres. Comedy, drama, action, horror, sci-fi. And sometimes I have to like, okay, is this more drama than comedy, or is this more action than sci-fi? Like, how do I put this? Because I don't like subgenres.
Mm-hmm.
I think that subgenres are just, I just don't have room. Um, I keep them all in binders, right? Like I keep the
Mm-hmm.
cases for the discs. I keep them in boxes in my basement. Um, I put them into the old school like jewel case binders, like
Yeah.
those things. So
Old school cases.
I have those. I have binders that hold 400 discs, and I have another one next to it that holds 320. So I'll be at about 3,000 in the near future, or over 3,000 movies. Um, but I find all film fascinating in its way. Like I find, like even a film like Gandhi, Ben Kingsley starred as Gandhi. I find that film amazing. It's a 3 hour movie. I watched it twice in one day last year. Um, so it was a long day, but in that he says he makes a very important statement. He says, um, one of his advisors says, the British, they're considering, they're prepping for martial law, and he says, well, the fact that they are resorting to martial law means that they're desperate, and so
Yeah.
I whenever all this talk about martial law was happening way back, you know,
Whenever they're
uh,
amping things up, there's something going on.
and
Like
I said, this is a sign of desperation, people.
smoke and mirrors for sure.
Yeah, I said this is a sign that they're desperate to keep something contained or keep you from moving forward with whatever it is you're doing. I said, martial law is an act of desperation, and again, I try to take away from every film that I have.
I
And then
said
I
they
got
that they did that with the Boston bombing when they blamed it on those two boys that didn't do that shit and they murdered them on live television. That was crazy. And
uh,
I was like, that was at the beginning of my waking up, and I was like, everybody was wanting to chase these boys down and get them, and I was like, what makes you think they're guilty? You
yeah,
haven't seen anything. All you've been going off what they've been telling you. They hit that one kid live on television with an SUV, and everybody was cheering it on, and they don't know if he's guilty or not. Like,
yeah, I think things like when 9/11 happened, like I think the first thing I typed into YouTube was 9/11 videos. And when things like that happen, uh, I think that they, the bad guys, whatever you want to call them, just call them the cabal from now on, are using those instances and those experiences, things they learn from stuff like 9/11, to uh, to
attack the
more
questioners.
and to
Yeah.
more effectively in the future when they try to put out a false flag or a psyop of some kind. They learn from Okay, well, how do they respond during 9/11? Okay, they did this, this, and this.
Hmm.
Well, okay, how can we improve on that?
It was like a
Um,
footprint,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, how can we make it better? Um,
a blueprint. Yeah.
yeah, uh, so like I still think again a lot of what's happening in the world. Like I'm trying to, like a lot of people, idealistically look at a world where there's no poverty and this and that, and I think, it would
I think a
take
lot of
longer.
poverty in a lot of places is a choice, though. Like a lot of it's unfortunate circumstances, but coming from the life I've come through in this country that I've grown up in, and now knowing I know about manifestation and placebo, a lot of it is choice. You're like what Job
Yeah,
said in the Bible, that I've greatly feared has come upon me, which is bringing it upon ourselves.
right.
Yeah.
And how much of that is through influence and suggestion, or again dumbing down? I don't know. It's
But there
hard to
is a
tell.
collective, though. That I believe there is an individual experience that we're completely in control of, but there's things a part of the collective that are completely out of our control. Like
Yeah.
so, on it.
Yeah, and I think that's where I think at this point in time, we've reached a bit of a precipice where, and I think we've reached a point where, uh, you will either, again, you will want to look at the truth when it's presented, or you're just gonna turn it off and go watch the hockey game or whatever, right? It's like,
Mhm.
I think that some people aren't ready for that. They're not ready to.
It goes back to
Uh,
the Matrix thing. Like they'll
they
fight
want
you.
to. Yeah, they just want. They just
I
want
have
to
a
go. But
friend
yeah,
who's waking up, and every time I show him something, he like fights me on it. But
yeah,
like, but then like 2 weeks later, he'll come show me something that if I would have showed him, I feel like he would have fought me on it. But if he's showing it to me, it's okay. He's like, "Hey, have you seen this?" And I'm like, "Yeah," and I'll just talk to him about it. But I feel like if I was to bring the same thing to him, he would have been like, "Nah," and then gone with the normal mainstream educative point on it, and like,
well, I try to use the Socratic method now. I try to ask people questions
mhm.
so that they're like, okay, well, what's the answer to that? And like they
And that's
have
what I
fun
did with him.
themselves.
I was showing the last thing I showed him. I got frustrated with him too because of how much like blatant obvious science and technology was in what I was trying to tell him. So there was a display of these things were dug up from architects from the ground. There was this stone structure that was built of this man carved into a stone. There was a tool that he was sitting on, using a tool that was carved out of stone, literally carved out of stone, of him, a tool that carves stone. And I was like, see, that the ancients used to have forms of technology. They just dug it up. And he's like, that's not proof. Like, it's literally in stone. That they're showing you in stone that they had technology. And you know what I mean? Like, that's like, it couldn't have been any more blatant for me. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
it's literally in stone. They could have literally only put it in alphabetical letters and wrote it.
right.
That's the only way they could have made it more blatant obvious that we had stone cutting tools. And then another picture I had, it was a whole set of pictures. It was one of those whose geo rocks that was like 20 feet wide and 20 feet tall, and it was cut completely smooth, like a huge blade had cut it, and like you couldn't have done that with axes and chips. That smooth blade, and they dug it up from the ground. That was obviously something that was cut like a huge quartz wall that was obviously
Yeah.
cut with like a huge blade, like a
Well,
diamond blade.
what's interesting about that is that, some of what I've, if do you know Lawrence Gardner at all?
Mm-mm.
His stuff. So Lawrence Gardner, hypothesizes in several of his books about, rubies being manipulated, uh, as the original lasers, and they were cut stone and perfectly, and they had these large lasers that were used in ancient times that would
Mm-hmm.
cut things, uh, in perfect dimensions. So it could have been a blade, but it could also have been something like that, like some sort of
Yeah,
technology where
lasers
they
would make more sense. Yeah.
they slice it with a beam of light that was harnessed from rubies, um, and again, that's I mean going back to you know some of the stones for the pyramids and whatnot, and other ancient structures were carved with such precision that it seems almost you
See, that's
know
what I think those California forest fires were, the lasers. I don't think they were actually fires. I think they were using those laser technologies and
oh
setting.
yeah
When they were
the
when the Hemi that was melted in a parking lot, but the tree next to it was fine. You're like,
was
how does
fine,
a
yeah.
Hemi engine get melted, but the
Yeah,
tree
yeah, and I think that too is something that the average person
doesn't pick up
is
on?
they're not even going to be like, oh well, they're not thinking like it's like. But to me, again, someone like you or I, we're actually like, well, why isn't the
The
tree?
heat that it takes to melt a engine block.
I think they're testing, yeah, directed energy weapons. I
Hmm.
think they're testing them. I think these are again, uh, they're technology that's been suppressed for a long time. It was once widely known.
Hmm.
Um, uh, Someone had
Like Tartaria.
hypothesized uh, Lemuria and Atlantis and those ancient civilizations
Yeah.
that they used. Someone said the ancient trees, that the fossilized trees, the stumps like Devil's Tower and
Yeah.
whatnot, and the ancient trees from a long time, from hundreds of thousands of years ago. Um,
They used to
well, people
talk. I
say,
hear
and people say, well, who cut them down? And I think
the
about some of
giants.
the what's that?
The giants.
Yes, and well, I also think about how pyramids were possibly used as weapons, but also the energy, directed energy, was bounced off of the firmament and down, right? So that's someone hypothesized that that these weapons they're shooting in a way that came down in another place and would cut these trees.
Like they use
So
heart.
yeah, very much like that, and the other directed energy weapons. Um, so it's it's certainly. I mean, it's fascinating to. I mean, again, a lot of this, who knows uh, what's right and what is fiction or what is just hypothesis, right? But I find that a lot of as time goes on, we're starting to see a very clear picture. I feel like we're starting to see a very clear picture of the past, of history, of the world that we live in, and the
Hmm.
things around us, like you say, the sun and the moon. These things that people just take for granted. They don't even think about it. They happen to see a nice, oh, let's take a picture of that moon. Okay, they post it on Facebook. Or like the sunsets. Like there's one photo of the sunset uh, where you can actually see in behind the clouds this reflection of the sun.
Hmm.
And
Oh, we're at
it's
the firmament video I made. Have you seen that one where the sun's going down through the clouds, and I fast forward it and speed it up, and fast forward it and speed it up. You
yeah.
can see the shadow on the other side, on the back side, bouncing off the firmament. Like you can see the shadow going away from the sun
And
on
what's
the other side.
fascinating, it's fascinating is that people will say that that's a Photoshop or a
I did that.
CGI.
I made that video.
Yeah, but that's the thing is people will
Yeah.
say that, but they
Yeah.
won't believe that NASA does the same thing, that they're creating
I
CGI
literally
or
just time lapsed the sun going down, zoomed all the way in, and then I saved the video, and then I went over to photos, clicked on the video, and then just sped up and slowed down recording it, screen recording it. That's all I did. Like,
and people will say that's manipulated when really all you've done is show, but they
show
won't
it
look at the
really fast. It shows it differently to the eye when you're seeing it like that. Like it's
yeah,
obvious. It's obvious.
yeah, and because it's so subtle, and like we said earlier, people aren't looking at the sun or the moon really in any discerning way. They're not really they're taking it for granted. I think that um, again, like you say, it's a smoking gun. To me, it's blatantly obvious that something is not right with the world around us and how it all works. It's just not, at least not what we've been taught or told.
Yeah, and it's
Um,
easier to prove it with the lights than I think it is the Earth.
Absolutely.
Just because our perspective is very limited. So
What are your thoughts on the Buddhist map that was found in Hawaii?
the all circular maps, right?
Right.
Yeah. So maybe it's square. Maybe you undo that circle, and there's layers to it that way. The layout of mine stays the same as square, the one in our phone. Now that map could be true. There could be more land, but I would,
outside of it, yeah.
but more so on the layout of what I think to be true. Like if you were to take those ice walls that are circles and straighten them out, maybe have ice wall up here, ice wall up here, ice wall down here, and like every in between
Right.
each ice wall, there's land and earth, and beyond that ice wall is another earth, and beyond that ice wall is another earth, and
Right. Yeah, I mean, I find that fascinating that there is land beyond there. I mean, Admiral Byrd said that there was boatloads of land past Antarctica, on the other side of it, which, I mean,
what
the
if
other side,
Antarctica is just an island that leads you back toward the North Pole?
yeah, I mean, that's also possible.
What if you
too.
just it's like, oh, I'm over here. I often think it's like a video game too. So imagine this is the ice wall, right? You're looking up into the abyss. You walk down the ice wall, right? And it seems like you're walking forever, like an hour. Like, let's say you walk in 2 days, but the minute you turn around and walk backwards for an hour, you're already here.
Right.
You walk 5 days this way, you walk an hour back, and you're back here. You get what I'm saying? It's like a
Yes.
computer world where you think you're walking really far off the map, but you're still right there.
Yeah, no, that makes sense too, and I think when we get to that, well, what is time and what is space, and we start to play with that, it's totally plausible. It's totally plausible that
When I first woke up to flat Earth too, I heard about this guy that like he got away off Antarctica. It was like a lone, free explorer that he wandered so far off South Antarctica that he flopped down dead because he no longer had an electric pulse. Like he got so far away from the center of Earth, like where his electric parameters were, that his ticker stopped because he's no longer on the grid. He's literally no longer on the grid.
Right. Interesting. Which means that if, in order to pass through that, there would have to be some sort of a Stargate or a portal that allows you to get from one place to the other.
Our
Or-
physical bodies are not allowed to leave,
Yes.
and that would what I would
Well,
assume.
I've
yeah.
heard that that where we are now is a prison.
Hotel California.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very much a prison that we're not allowed to leave. You can check out, but you can't leave. Yeah, and not just for us, but for these elites. They've been put here because they're so problematic. They're not allowed to leave because of the havoc and the mischief that they cause. And that they've been transferring from one body to another and passing, just from generation to generation, to thousands of years. And
Vampires.
Yeah, and the evil that just keeps coming back. It's like that Iron Maiden song, the evil that men do lives on and on, and that's why we're not allowed to leave. 'Cause we're trapped in here in this prison with them, and only we can overcome that through our collective consciousness and the destroying of it. Now, I still believe that good things are coming for us. I still believe that good things are ahead. I think that, again, I believe that based on my faith, and part of it is, the sources that I talk to, the people I talk to, and I trust these people. I don't think that I'm being lied to. I don't think that the spirits are guiding me in a deceptive way. I believe that this is I feel like I've been pushed in this direction, and I've been doing it for so long that I've been able to weed out a lot of the misinformation. Like I said, strip the meat and throw away the bone. I've learned to do that.
I find process of elimination is the most important thing in the truth community.
Yeah,
And that's like when people often you'll see me act like an asshole a lot on social media, right? And that's because people new to information or what I have to say are new to me, and they don't know that I've already eliminated a lot of things that they're bringing to my table, and I'm dismissing them.
yeah,
And then they think that I'm closed-minded or not
yes.
open-minded, and I'm like, I've already like thrown this away and dissected it, and like I can sit here and tell you why you're dumb, but I just don't want to entertain you right now, and that's it. Like I got things to do. Like
And I also find too, and I also
yeah,
find too that sometimes, uh,
it's gaslighting a
it,
lot and shills and gatekeepers taking my time up, and I
that
don't
too. But
know how to decipher who's who.
yeah, and I have to be careful because sometimes I feel like I don't want to squash someone else's, awakening journey too.
Hmm.
Like I want to try and allow them to figure it out. Like
Right,
you're asking me, but I've already been down that road. So what you need to do is go
travel
read
it,
some more books
travel that
and
road,
yeah,
and
and
yeah.
and try and find out,
Take
and
heed
then
of
you
what
can
I have to say and keep
yeah,
going. Yeah, yeah.
and keep going. Yeah, because I think that's because like I still believe that the awakening process is a very traumatic thing.
That's what I
But
told you about earlier about my friend. If I tell him information, he'll reject it. If I let
exactly.
him find it on his own, it's kind of like the Alice in Wonderland. You drop the seed, and
Yeah, I mean, I remember telling him, like a good buddy of mine, a really close friend years ago. I'm a guitar player. I've been playing since '89, and he wanted to learn how to play guitar, and so I said, okay, I'll teach you some stuff or whatever. And I remember telling him at one point, like, dude, when you're learning to play, a really great band to listen to is AC/DC because they're simple songs to play, but you can really rock out to them, and you get that feeling, and really, and there's simple chords and things, but you can play from those four or five
and then you
chords. You
can
can play.
freestyle off those chords, and then you get
Well,
better.
I say from those four or five basic chords, you can play like half their catalog. So,
Yeah.
so I said, it's a really great band. Oh no, AC/DC, blah blah blah. 6 weeks later, I swear to God, Preston, he comes to me, dude. I know how I've been listening to you, man. AC/DC, you got it. I'm like, oh my God. I rolled my fucking eyes. I'm like, fuck you, Dames. I fucking told you like a month and a half ago to listen to that. But he had to find it on his own. He had, and I don't know what it was that happened. I think he'd heard it on the radio or something and then went digging on the internet for it. But something happened, like a month and a half after I'd said that, where but it wasn't because I said it. It was because he found it on his own, and that again led him to be, a major fan, and really helped his playing a lot, like significantly. So, I think that journey is really something that, again, you have to, offer your wisdom and your knowledge, but allow people to figure it out on their own, because that's the only way that this is going to happen. I think there's a lot of
Well,
people
that's
out there.
like what you're saying on that is sometimes you can get knowledge at the wrong time and it's not useful to you at that time. And if you're
Yes,
sitting there trying to explain to somebody something that they're not ready for or they can't understand or get to begin with, because I've tried to tell some people where I know my observations are elite and they can't even perceive it because of the brainwash. Like so, it's like I know I'm not even going to reach them. So.
well, at this point, that's kind of, and this is a very sensitive topic right now with a lot of people, but I keep saying that with these deaths from the vaccines, I keep telling people, I'm like, have you considered that these deaths are a part of God's plan, and that they're necessary
Mhm.
in order for people to see how evil big pharma is?
There's a silver lining. And
Yes,
death to our creator means nothing. Like
yeah.
you're God's child, and death is just a process. Like
And I try to, and people get really pissed off. I'm very careful about how I bring it up, but some people are very angry about that. And I'm like, well, again, we wouldn't be having these discussions if they weren't dying.
yeah,
We wouldn't be
we didn't
saying,
kill
oh
them.
my,
It's the
yeah,
same people that get mad about this. They get mad about you questioning the narrative of 9/11. Like I didn't kill them. I
yes,
want to
yeah,
know who killed them.
Yes,
Why am I
exactly.
getting mad at you for wanting to know? Like, I want to investigate. You should be on
Yeah,
my side. You sound and emotionally sound like you would be on my side on this. Like,
exact, and
yeah.
that's it. That's you just hit that's the key point. Quite often, we're at odds with people who have the same goal and the same vision and the same objectives, simply for reasons of semantics or a misconception on a fundamental level. It's like we both want the same thing. We want these vaccines to stop. We want the mandates to stop and everything.
They don't want to
But
believe they've been lied to, though. That's the big.
but yeah, part of it is they can't accept either that
And it's
they've
the
been lied
people
to
that
or
who are lying to them, because if they know that those people are lying to them, they've been lied to about a whole bunch of other stuff.
exactly.
That's the problem.
Eh,
And the problem with the truth community is most of us are black sheep. Like, I come from a broken home.
Right.
I'm a former drug addict. I don't have really much going for me. I work for Uber. I mean, I'm doing well for myself. Don't get me wrong. I have a very nice house. I do very well I've woken up. But like, people don't listen to me. I'm an average Joe, and like until like I can catch you with a certain observation or something one on one, I'm never going to catch the masses. Like, they're immediately going to be like, "What does he do for a living? Who is he?" They have to go through an authoritarian checkoff, and
Well,
like,
I often think about that time, like I said, when I was talking to my sister's boyfriend's cousin. If he had started talking about the New World Order and I was just like in one ear, out the other, I'm like, no, that's whatever. I often think about like how different my life would be. I mean, I consider a lot of this stuff like my life's work now,
yeah. So
30
who
years in.
brought you this information? Because I feel like I've purposely like almost driven my sister and her family away from
Sure.
like into vaccines.
Right.
Like, I feel like it's almost been done in like just uh, and they won't come back, and like, I feel like I scare them.
Well, I think some people want to reinforce what they believe,
Hmm.
and rather than listen to you, they're like, no, no, he's crazy because he believes in flat Earth, and
And
now
then once
vaccines.
it, later on down the road, now they're getting scared that the crazy guy's right.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
the guy that drinks his own pee and believes the Earth is flat is right. Like, that's the
I,
part that bothers them. That's
I know, and I think that's I find that funny, so hilarious that like, again, like my sister, again, she had two kids, she lived, she's a Christian, she lived her life and whatever, but whenever I would bring this stuff up, she was always just like, okay, and and then just last year, we were talking to someone about something, and she's like, oh well, he's been right about everything all along. Just like she just like she started to see the agenda, and I started talking more about it. Like, this is what I was talking about. This is what I meant way back in 2008, 2009 was going to happen. All of this stuff that's happening right now.
Yeah, I was walking up. We were having like a birthday pool party at like a little gazebo at a water park, and where we had rented a table. And I walk up, and I heard her say something about right about everything. And then I heard my mom go, "Don't say that around Preston." Like, and they didn't want them to hear me that they had been talking about me being right. And like,
Yeah, and but that's also it's fascinating because that's part of their journey, and it's almost, I mean, it's hard to admit that you've been lied to, especially to the people who told you you were being lied to. You know
yeah,
what I mean? It's like,
because they rejected you.
and I always tell people too, like, this isn't a time, like a lot of
Because you're
people think,
rejecting somebody that's authentically looking out for you.
yes, and I tell people like in this journey for us, people who are awake and aware, it should always be about truth, never about vindication.
Or ego.
There's
I
when
feel
you
like when I
search,
first woke up, there was a big ego thing for me.
yeah, and
Yeah.
a lot of people are in this for "I told you so" moments, and I'm like, that's not what it should be about, because when the shit hits the fan, and I believe the hammer is going to drop real soon, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be calling me and saying, dude, what the fuck am I supposed to do now? And it's like, well, I've been telling you this, and this. You know what to do. Do it if you can. If it's not, if it's too
I feel
late.
like at first I was I told you so person.
Oh yeah, I
Now
was
I'm
too.
just into the phase like once in a blue moon, I just want you to tell me I was right about one thing. I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
Just once
yeah.
in a blue moon, just tell me I was right. Like,
I think that I got that moment with my sister
yeah,
inadvertently. Like when I heard her saying that, I was just like, oh, there,
yeah,
good,
yeah.
okay. And I didn't have to ask for it; it just happened, and God gave me that moment, and I was just like, okay, phew. Okay, so God gave me the vindication. I didn't need to seek it out myself, you know. But
But she's the one foster sister that I have that's kind of like question things in general too. She's on. She started to come with me with questions years ago. So I was like,
yeah.
so when the whole COVID thing happened, she was already like asking me like, what's your opinion?
Well,
Like,
my sister never used to.
yeah.
She just like she would get a headache if she thought about it too much, right?
I
But
don't understand
now,
those people.
I
Like they
know,
get so
I know,
flabbergasted and
I know,
flustered by like just thinking. Like it's chill out. It's
I
just
know.
fake
I'm
thoughts. Like
always inside my head doing like thinking about that stuff, and so I, now I can actually have a discussion about this with her, without it getting her so upset, because she's just like she understands, she sees it now. She can grasp the concepts that I'm talking about. I've recently sent her some very like I consider like somewhat advanced stuff, right? And she watched it. She watched it all. I mean, I don't know if how much went over her head or not, but I think she enjoyed it. She enjoyed watching it, to be aware, to be awake. Because I tell people like, you know, this isn't. It's not for everyone, but for those that have questions, because I'm always asking questions. I like to ask questions. That's why I wanted to sit down and talk to you, because I had questions about your thoughts on flat Earth, and I was just like,
when
I'm
you
gonna
get
talk.
answers, you just find more questions.
I'm like,
You'll go
I gotta
think a
talk to this
while.
guy after all my studies and everything I've
So
done.
what of mine made you stick out to want to talk to
Well,
me?
just when you're talking about the maps and how you're like it's bullshit, and I can explain why, but I was like I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about it
So
and
you
touch
get why
base.
the eclipse debunks the AA map, right?
Yes, yes,
You
and
can't
and,
have an
and I
eclipse
like
over the
that.
entire outer rim of the Earth. Like it's
Yeah,
not.
and that's to me. Once you think of it, you're like, oh shit, that's fucking hardcore basic. Like that's hardcore, just a basic like
Observation.
observational, thing. But we don't consider that because we're not always in those points or in that state of mind. But it's just like, oh
That's
man,
why I've never let it go. People are like, "Why
yeah,
are you still beating this horse?" Because there's more things that are going to come up, more things
because
I haven't considered, more
the horse
things.
isn't dead yet.
The horse isn't dead yet. Like I just found out about flat Earth 6 years ago. I learned about the globe for 12 years.
Yeah,
So like, and all the sciences that are involved in that nonsense. So like,
yeah.
yeah, that's why I haven't stopped dissecting the personal firmament and everything around it. Like, because I feel
Well,
like that this is going to keep going.
I feel like there's so much that's unexplained that it's. I find it like some people want to know definitively certain things, and I'm now up to, and maybe I got into this because of that, but now my true objective is to have an open mind. It's one of those weird things. It's like the Chinese finger trap, right? The more
Hmm.
you pull, the harder it is to get out of it. But as soon as you let go, you know what I mean? It's like then you can get out of it. It's like to me that's what the open mind is. The more you know, which is why I try to remain as open minded and not
See,
have a
I like to tell people I don't like to be open-minded. I like to be freedom-minded. Because if you're
well.
open-minded, people put all kinds of shit in there. If you're freedom-minded, you'll put what you want in there.
That's good. I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
Freedom minded, because I think it allows you the ability to wrap your head around new ideas without it being more difficult to consider them, whether you accept them or not. But to consider new ideas and new thoughts is the key to it all. And I think we're now reaching a threshold where people are like, because of all this stuff, like maybe the flat earthers are right. Holy shit, like that to me is hilarious, you know.
And the
Uh,
biggest reason people hate flat Earth is because of the God complex thing. I honestly believe it because it leads to a religious place and it
oh,
leads
I
to a
think so
spiritual
too.
place. And people, that's what they don't want to do is look themselves in the mirror.
Well, I find it fascinating when there are people who are like a staunch, like devoted Christian, and they still think the flat Earth. I'm like, guys, have you read parts of the Bible where it discusses this stuff?
I
Like,
go to a Mormon church. Do you know that? I go to Mormon church occasionally, and
okay,
I'm a member of a Mormon church. And the last time they come over and try to like get me to be a member, I still go like once in a blue moon, and then they'll come and give me a couple visitations to they want me paying tithing. I know that's what they want.
right.
Um, and he started to talk to me. Oh, I believe in the heliocentric model, and I was like, I started to explain some observations, and I could see the other Mormon, and the other Mormon's eyes start to light up, like, and I could see he just wasn't getting it, like, so it was like, but it was funny, but a lot of the Mormons are very open-minded. I was actually told by the Mormons in basic training, like 10 years ago, that the sun and the moon were really close in our atmosphere. And at the time, I was like, what are these crazy Mormons talking about? So I went to basic training. And like the first week you're there, you're allowed to go to church. You get in this van, you stay and wait in these lines, you go to these churches. This one Mormon kid was like, oh, they give you emails and cookies at the Mormon church. I was like, I'm going to the Mormon church. I get there, blah, blah, blah. And they pull you into this room and they're recruiting you away from the rest of the church group, and they start to tell you about Mormonism. And they're like, the sun and the moon come across the sky and they're in our atmosphere and they're really close and they're the same size. And I remember at that time, I was way before I woke up. It was like years before I woke up. I was like, what are they talking about? There's no way. Like, these people are out their mind. Here I am later preaching a personal sun and moon. And so I tell them this all the time. I that's what I went to the Mormon church for, was so I could give my testimony. So, because I feel like religious people are way more open-minded towards creationism than, and I feel like a lot of the super religious people are super disconnected from the atheist, and that science is that smoking gun key that they need to bring them together. And I feel like
Right.
that's what I want to go back to church for, so I can bond those two together.
Yeah, because I think there is a combination of both working together, and I think that the separation is again more division. It's caused by the separation of science and religion,
Mm-hmm.
and I think the powers that be, a lot of them know that there's a combination of both working together. I read the Bible.
You can't have science without religion. I mean, science without God, and that's what
Yeah,
they're trying to do. This is the word.
and I agree, and I think that um, I think because we have a creator, um, I think that that's why people have an innate desire to believe in something higher than them, which is why science has replaced religion in the lives of these people, even though they say, "Oh, I don't believe in religion, I believe in science." It's like, what?
I have a
You,
pretty hardcore stance though on the creator. I have a stance that he killed himself after he birthed this place into consciousness, and he no longer exists. And he created this place so perfectly balanced that the good will always balance the good, and the bad will always balance the bad, and everybody just keeps reincarnating.
interesting.
And no matter what, the earth is like a living place, and it will always balance itself, no matter what. And that it's conscious, and then there's nothing you can do about that.
That's fascinating. I think that, yeah, and which would explain the simple concept of the yin yang, right?
Hmm.
Um, you know, again, sun and moon. What is the balance between those two things? You know, I think there are very simple. I mean, I try to, again, like the whole concept of time travel being broken down into simple algebra. Like I believe that there are very simple explanations and simple, uh, uh, very, very complex ideas that can be boiled down to something very simple that everyone can understand. Like even your daughter could understand, right?
Right.
Something that's so simple, and I like that you're able to, like, get your daughter to look at something and say, well, what do you see? Tell me what you see. Not what you've been told, but what do you see with your own eyes? Just observe, because that's not even taught in schools anymore. Like
Right.
that's not like observable science. You're right. It's all regurgitation.
Get them to describe what they're seeing. Because
Yeah.
when I like started to have my epiphanies about the sun and the moon, that's what I went out on like a hilltop and just sat there and was like, okay, I'm having trouble finding words of what I'm wanting to say. And I closed my eyes, I meditated, and I said, okay, I'm gonna open my eyes and just start describing what I'm seeing. And then just as that, it all started to come to me. Like, I was like,
Right.
oh, it is what it is. Nothing more or less than what I'm seeing is what it is. And then, yeah, it was just able to message it all out after that. Like, so.
Well, I think that what we're seeing now is it's a very fascinating time to be alive. I'll say that. Um, uh, but um, we'll see. I think we'll see in the near future uh, some conclusions to a lot of this. What's going on. I think um, I just personally feel like we're gonna see a lot of this take flight real soon, and a lot of stuff, crazy stuff's gonna happen. I don't know how it's gonna happen or when,
That's
but
the thing about you're talking about like the kind of the Q stuff.
some of it, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that stuff was making me so like hyper emotional that I had to like, or not emotional. That's the wrong word. It was giving me
Anticipated?
anxiety. Like,
Okay.
I wasn't emotional about it, but I felt like I was always like having hope on a rope, and like that's what I felt like. It felt like hope on a rope.
Well, I keep telling people about hope. I say, because they say, "Oh, you're holding on to hopium."
Yeah,
It's a
hopium.
drug.
They're selling you hopium.
And I tell people, I say, well, hope, in my opinion, hope is just as dangerous as fear if you let it control you the same way, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
some people just cling on to hope without any, without like I try to cover my bases and find practical solutions to the problems, not
Yeah.
just waiting for someone to solve it for me. Which I believe is part of the Q movement, is that to wake humanity up to find themselves in all of this, not just wait for Donald Trump to swing in on on an American flag and save everybody, right?
Yep.
That's not the way it's meant to be, as far as I can tell,
What's your
based
opinion
on
on
my research.
DeSantis? You like DeSantis?
Ah, I don't know. I'm kind of up in the air a bit on DeSantis. I'm always a little cautious of people who say all the right
He
things.
seems not too good, right? Yeah. Like he's gonna flip
Uh,
flop on us.
I don't know. I
Talk
mean,
a big
again,
game and then do nothing. That's
I still feel like, again, I reserve judgment to the end, so I'm not going to say either way, but I do feel like it's because some people are like, "Oh man, he's the best governor ever." It's like, okay, well maybe, but again, like everyone up here, we're watching a very, very, very obvious game of bait and switch politics. To
mm,
me, Pierre Polyev, I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's now running for prime minister up here.
okay.
And Justin Trudeau is the laughing stock of the world.
Everybody thinks I look like him.
Oh, I don't think so.
I guess there's pictures of me with shorter hair with his hair,
Uh,
and
uh,
I'm a little bit
maybe with
fatter.
maybe
I've
with shorter hair, I could see it,
and
but
about 10, 15 more pounds,
yeah, yeah, I could see that. Eh,
and shave when
and
I shave. Yeah.
and I tell people, I say, listen, they work for the same team. They're like, if you and people say, well, no, he's not a globalist. He says out loud that he's not a part of it. I say, okay, well, how does he vote when he's in parliament? Why does
Yeah,
he
and
consist?
Trudeau isn't the Cuban son, right?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of people who believe that.
He looks just like him.
Well, it's not only that, but there's pictures of him and his wife, his mother, Margaret Trudeau, was actually spent time in Cuba, private time and was like, oh, you can tell why that guy's in power. Castro, oh, he's a real charmer, that guy. It's like, okay. And there's pictures of her standing next to Castro, and Castro's holding Justin Trudeau, and it's like a family photo. And it's like, that's fucking weird.
It's kind of like the
Okay.
Mother Teresa and Fauci. Have you seen those pictures?
Yeah. I mean, and
I
again,
got fact checked on that. Like, why is fact
did you?
checkers? Yeah, fact checking a meme that's like the meme was a joke. It had a
Well,
joke on it, and then
Well,
like
I've heard that she was big into human trafficking. She was a
yeah,
human
like
trafficker.
Clintons, like with the Clintons
Yeah,
and all that stuff.
and I don't. Again, I think everything's on the table now. I think with the way we're living and the kind of lifestyle, I think again, I like to look at it and
Sometimes I
obviously,
think it's all a conspiracy, and that they want us to believe all this stuff that's not true to keep our minds kind of in the gutter, where we're not believing in the good and in goodness, and we want to be victims and keep mulling around and procrastinating and then think we're slaves when none of that stuff's true, and we could really be like kings. And
well,
it's
I
all a
tell
mindset.
well, yeah, I agree, and I tell people a lot, especially with the freedom movement up here. A big thing was the trucker convoy up here, right? Um, I said to people, I said, listen, if you're standing on the street corner waving a flag or a sign, the government doesn't really care. You're not really doing anything. I said, if you're looking for practical solutions to the problems, that's what they don't want. They don't want you and I running for government, for office, because it
Right.
takes the power of governance and gives it back to us, the people. And that's why I tell
Well, we've
people
talked
about
so
yeah,
many conspiracy theorists and people into not participating, but I tell people all the time,
yeah,
like, do
yeah.
you think if you leave the government alone, they're going to leave you alone? Like,
Exactly. And that's why I said like, and which is why again,
the
after
whole
watching,
no, not voting thing is a conspiracy.
oh
Like,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. That was the first conspiracy that I like stumbled into that I'm now waking up to. Like, when you wake up in the conspiracy movement, it's like, oh, voting doesn't matter, none of that. There's a huge like
it's an
uh,
umbrella. Yeah.
a huge umbrella of that, and like money's bad, don't get a job. I mean, like, I wouldn't, if I would have stayed like that, I would have never went in the oil field. I've never looked out for my family. I would have never like got moving forward because I would have felt like I was feeding this beast. Like,
And some
and
people are content to live off the grid and go like scavenging for food, or what do they call it? Um,
yeah, off
uh,
grid basically. Yeah.
yeah, people want to live like that. That's okay.
Hmm.
I really think everyone should decide their own level of involvement, but I personally know that we can live our lifestyle the way we want to, and our food doesn't need to be poisoned. It doesn't need to be poisoned water that we're
I
drinking.
believe there has been peaceful utopias before, and like straight good utopias.
Yeah.
Atlantis and yeah, and places like that had great utopias where there was peace and love, and then it all went bad one day. I think like
Well,
extremely
I
bad.
think when somebody sees that you're peaceful in your life, right, and they don't like that because they don't have that, that's when they
Misery
come and
had
try.
company. Yeah.
They try to come and take that away from you. And I think a lot of that's what happened back then. Some of these troublemakers, I call them troublemakers, a few 100,000 people that run the world right now,
Hmm.
um, tried to mess with things. They tried, again, like everyone praises Elon Musk, but I say like,
He's
well,
one of them.
I'm like, guys, this is a guy who wants to further humanity by putting microchips in our brains. Like,
Yeah.
that's not a good guy. Like, maybe he's doing some good things for humanity. Maybe he is a role model to some people, but I just don't see that sort of research as anything. Like, that guy could probably end let's say world hunger, but hunger in several different countries around the world by implementing some of this technology. And that they have. And I think that it's a disservice to humanity to not pursue that, and still putting microchips in the brains of monkeys so that one day we can put them in the brains of humans. That just doesn't make any sense to me. It's completely backwards, and I don't trust anyone that's really. I mean, if that's his journey, go for it, buddy. Put microchips in the brains of monkeys, go for it. I'm sure when they're released back into the wild, they'll end up with their crew back in the jungle and like, hey, guess what? I can download episodes of Seinfeld faster than you now, and right to my brain. Like it's not. It's
Hey, monkeys
clearly,
traveled in space, didn't you know?
yeah, yeah. So so I mean, I just don't see a guy like that as being anything but
I think he's a fraud.
really cool.
Somebody explained it to me, and kind of I researched this before they explained it to me what a legacy buyer is. I was like, he's just bought and sold everything, and they go, yeah, he's a legacy buyer. He
Yeah,
got famous through owning a company and then sold it and bought a bigger company, sold it, bought a bigger company, sold it. He owns a bunch of shit that he's just bought and sold. Like that's it. Like he's never done anything. He's never invented anything. He's never created anything. He's literally just bought and sold. He showed his cards when he like threw that brick through the window. Like you're obviously a puppet.
Well, that's another reason why, again, like the when he was praising the truckers and the convoy. I mean, I don't know how much of that you know about it up here, but there's some people who went to jail. They were quote unquote the organizers, and Tamara Litch was one of them. And suddenly she was the one that started one of the GoFundMe's, and I again skeptical, just said, okay, well, let's see where this goes. She one of the self-appointed organizers of the convoy. A lot of this money went missing. She has ties to the Alberta separatist movement and the Liberal Party. And I kept saying, I'm like, guys, she's poisoned. She's got ties to these organizations. Anyways, long story short, the truth started coming out about her. But the media started giving her all these awards and things, and she was the darling of Canada, and freedom fighter, oh my god, so awesome. But I just I kept telling people she's poison. There's an agenda clearly behind what she's doing. Her arrest was the most fake piece of shit I've ever seen in my life. Like when she was arrested, she just turned around and put her hands behind her back, and the night before she did a TikTok video where she's like fake crying. I mean, I've seen a lot of movies, and I can spot bad acting a mile away, and it was the worst acting I've ever seen.
Well, I often I tell people this all the time. When you watch a movie, if you take some shrooms, you can actually watch them reading the lines, and like you can see them actually like acting. You can see all the fake times. You can see all the times they're looking at a postcard. It's so awkward. Like when you're in that moment on shrooms where everything becomes unlocked, you almost can't watch shows and stuff because you just see it all. You're like,
well, I was once on acid and I ended up watching Pulp Fiction. It just come out on VHS, and there's a scene, that scene where Jules, when they go in and he gives that Ezekiel speech and he shoots the guy. Well, he's like, Brad, may I have some of your tasty shake to wash down this beverage? Or wash down that burger, and he's drinking like through the straw. Like I can't even watch that scene anymore because it fucking trips me right out. Like right out. Like I'm just like I'm having a flashback or something. Like so I tend to, when I'm watching that movie, I try to clip through it sometimes because it's just fucking trippy. But I feel watching this bad acting, on this video, she says, oh, I'm going to be arrested tomorrow. Like, well, how do you know that? Who told you that? And then when she does get arrested, I mean, it was just terrible. And I said, guys, come on. If you're really buying into this stuff, you've got to open your eyes. You've got to be more discerning. You've got to start, I know you want to believe these things, but doesn't necessarily make it true.
Yeah, like the whole George Floyd thing.
Oh, precisely.
That was the craziest thing to me.
Yeah, you guys lived through quite a. I mean, I remember watching.
He had 4 funerals and a golden casket.
Well, the summer of 2020, when I was working in the city again briefly, watching that whole thing go down, those riots, and then watching them burn the cities to the ground, man. Like that's something.
And it's happened before. It happened during the Martin Luther King riots. It happened in like 30 years before that. History repeats itself. They burnt Atlanta down a long time ago. Same reasons. Slavery and control, and to reset money and wealth. And it happens every 100 years, 50 years, like so. You have any more questions? I got to get going to the bed.
Fading, yeah. All right, dude. Well, no, I think that's pretty good, man. We've touched on a lot. I just want to say thanks, man, for taking this time.
No problem. I like talking.
I know you're a busy guy, and again, I follow your posts, like a lot of people, but you just had some really cool stuff to say, and I just wanted to touch base with you on a lot of it because, again, I like to hear what everybody's got to say, and I find it fascinating sharing new perspectives and ideas.
So
And
you get my theory, right? Like the whole sun and the moon theory.
yeah, I find it, and again, I'm gonna be watching it more closely on your page because
If you have any
um,
questions about it, just let me know. I can like explain it out, or like a lot of times, you'll understand one observation, but you might not get it. And if I give another observation, then it fills it in. Like
no,
I'll
you're
run
doing
into
a
that.
pretty good job. I mean, I pay pretty close attention to your posts, and your videos too. You say you started a YouTube page, didn't you?
Yeah, but YouTube. I've had a
Yeah.
YouTube for a while.
Okay. I'm gonna start following you there as well, just for additional information and stuff.
It
So
Protector of the Realm. It's on
I'll
my
look up.
Facebook page.
I'll, I'll look up. Yeah, okay. I'll check it out there.
You mind if I load
I'll.
this conversation on there?
Oh, did you record this?
It's I recorded it on my video card. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you want, man, go for it, dude. I hope it was helpful in some way.
No, just
Um,
any kind of what I really want to do is normalize these conversations with people. I have a little rideshare and truth segment, um,
okay.
that I have an Uber dash cam, and like when people start having truth conversations with me, I load that conversation on YouTube as well. I've only
Go
done
for it.
like a few of those. But like with this one, I'd probably add it to my Deceivers and Believers. I was gonna make a podcast called Deceivers and Believers, and yeah, I'll probably add it to like that playlist. So
Sure, man. If you want, go right ahead. That'd be cool. What I'll do is I'll also put that Looking Glass video on there. I sent you the other one, the other video, but I'll look that up for you, just so you can have a look. It's only about 10 minutes long. But yeah, yeah, for sure, man. That's great. This has been really fascinating. It's really good talking to you. So
yeah, great talking to you,
feel
Mark.
free, yeah, feel free to give me a buzz anytime. If you got
Okay.
some new stuff you want to chat, or you just want to bump some ideas off my noggin and see what I think. That's cool too. I'm always up for these kinds of discussions. What
Are
time is
you?
it there where you are now?
It's you're an hour behind us. It's 10:30.
Oh, it's 10:30. Okay, cool. Well, keep me posted, man. Thanks again. I really want to say thank you, Preston.
Hmm.
So we'll stay in touch, and well, I guess we'll leave it there. But yeah, we'll stay in touch, and
Yeah,
I really had a good time tonight. So that's
great
great.
talking to you. Well, definitely have to keep in touch. Maybe we can do like a scheduled podcast, maybe, or something.
I'd love, yeah. If you want to specifically, if you want to shoot me some beforehand, just let me know what topics we're going to touch on. I'll make some notes, and then we'll just try and go from
Tuesdays are
there.
generally good for me, but maybe we can come up with something. Yeah, it's been great talking to you. I'm gonna get heading to bed.
Yeah, yeah. If
Yeah.
Tuesdays are fine for me right now, like I say, I'm not busy, so yeah, whatever works, man, for sure.
Okay. Maybe we can
All
build
right, dude.
something consistent, like every other week or something. Do like a
Hey,
30 to
I'd be
45 minute
totally
show.
down for something like that, man. Absolutely, yeah.
All right. I'll catch you later.
All right. Yep. Take care, man. Have a great night.
Peace.
Cheers.